All right, does anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I don't have a script, but I would like to make a motion that we add a public comment session here at the beginning of the meeting for folks who are with us this evening that may want to provide comments but may not want to stay around for the whole budget work session. So,
Okay, do I hear a second to that?
I second. Oh, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay, sounds good. Well, in that case, is there anyone who would like to speak?
We still have the time limit on that?
Yeah, 3 minutes apiece.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Art Wise signed up.
There he is.
Good evening. I'm Art Wise, and I'm here mainly to talk about the budget. A lot of people are saying what we need is a zero growth budget. I think that would be a good starting point, but I think what we need is to take in 5 to 7% less than we took in last year. When I moved here in 1985, I know that was another century, this town was about the same size it is now, not too much smaller, and the number of people that worked here was about half. I know we have some better services. I think about snow removal this year. That never would have happened in the past. It was excellent. Several other things are very good, but I think we have to decide, is it something we want or something we need? So I'm hoping there's grant money out there. If we just have to be patient, I've been patient for an awful lot of years. I would encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Art. Anyone else?
Nobody else signed up.
All right, in that case, I will turn the,
Madam Mayor, I had one
Okay.
thing before we get into it. I just wanted to, so Tuesday night, I made an open statement about the fact that from my review of the budget that we don't have a revenue problem, but we do have a spending problem. And I just wanted to tell the staff team here that was not directed at you. I think you all do an excellent job with your work here with the town, and it was reflected again on Tuesday night when Scott presented the report about the golf course and things that are happening there in that arena. So you all are great. You know, you value stewardship like everybody here does at the table. My comments were primarily directed at sort of the policy and spending decisions that past councils have made. And it really, you know, like we'll do here in this session and sort of between now and the time that we adopt the budget, we're going to have some hard decisions to make relative to, you know, sort of a shared goal of looking at how we can keep the community services very, very high and affordable to the community. But I just wanted to say that to the staff. I think, you know, again, you all do an excellent job with running the organization and managing the resources and treating, you know, taxpayer money as if it's your own money. And I certainly appreciate that. And, you know, no part of my commentary had anything to do with necessarily the staff. It had all in everything to do with sort of past policy and spending decisions that have been made. Because when I look through the budget, I have some that I would certainly agree with 100%, but I also have certain items that are there that are I don't agree with. So that was the process or the comment I made. So thank you.
okay, thank you. All right, anyone else have anything to all right. Matthew, it is your floor, I believe, yes.
I've got some prepared remarks, and I will go through those now. Members of the Town Council, members of the staff, and citizens of Jamestown, good evening, and thank you for being here or watching online. We do appreciate your time, your attention, and your continued engagement in this process. And we are pleased to present the preliminary budget for fiscal year 26-27. This budget's been prepared in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 159, Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. All funds within the proposed budget are balanced. All revenues and expenditures have been clearly identified. So I do want to emphasize at this point, at the outset, that this is a balanced budget. The staff have worked diligently over the past several months to ensure that all of our operational needs have been accounted for, that our capital improvement projects are placed in the appropriate fiscal years, and that the overall plan reflects a thoughtful, fiscally responsible approach. And at every step in the process, there has been a strong focus on transparency, accuracy, and long-term sustainability. That may sound straightforward, but at this stage in the process, it's not something that we take for granted. It reflects a significant amount of work by staff, guided by the clear direction that this council has provided over time. It also represents a coordinated effort to align our priorities, the timing of capital projects, and our available resources in a way that holds together as a complete plan. So as you review the documents this evening, a thought to consider is that each component is connected to the others. Adjustments in one area will naturally create impacts elsewhere, and maintaining that overall balance will require thoughtful coordination as we move forward. Our goal is to support the council in refining the plan in a way that preserves the balance while aligning with your priorities. And as I indicated, this is not a budget that was put together quickly. It represents a significant amount of coordination across all of our departments, careful review of priorities, and a deliberate effort to align our resources with the expectations of the council as well as our residents. At its core, the budget reflects the town council's mission, which is to create an exceptional quality of life for all of our citizens by providing superior services. That mission is not simply a guiding statement, it is a framework for our decision-making. It informs how we prioritize our projects, how we allocate funding, and how we evaluate trade-offs when resources are limited while our needs continue to grow. It's also important to recognize that the work of local government cannot always be understood one line item at a time. There can be a tendency to separate what are often called core services from things that are sometimes labeled as amenities, things like parks, trails, public spaces, community events, and recreation. But in practice, those things are not separate from the work of government. They are part of the same system. A well-run community is not defined only by infrastructure and public safety, even though those are essential. It's also shaped by the spaces and the experiences that influence how people live day to day, where our families gather, how people connect, and whether residents feel a sense of pride in their community. Those elements influence how people invest in Jamestown, how long they stay, and how they perceive its future. So from a budgeting standpoint, our responsibility is not only to fund what is urgent, but to recognize how today's decisions contribute to long-term stability, value, and overall quality of life. That balance between immediate needs and our long-term outcomes is a central part of the resource stewardship role that the council and the staff share. As you know, the council adopted a strategic plan in June of 2021 to provide long-term direction and continuity. That plan remains a critical tool in aligning staff work with council priorities and ensuring that even as leadership evolves over time, our town maintains a consistent vision. The strategic plan currently indicates that there are 7 focus areas which were identified by this council following the retreat in January of this year. Those are staff excellence, communication and engagement, infrastructure resiliency, public health and safety, planning and economic development, amenities, and resource stewardship. Over the past fiscal year, the staff have made meaningful progress across these areas, including improvements to pedestrian connectivity, achieving our minimum staffing levels, advancing parks and recreation improvements, and strengthening customer service initiatives. And this budget reflects both the progress that has been made and the work that still lies ahead. And this year presents a unique financial position for the town. Due to Guilford County's property revaluation, the town would recognize just under $2 million in additional revenue if our current tax rate is maintained. After meeting all of our operational and capital needs, that would result in approximately $600,000 in additional revenue that would remain. From a purely mathematical standpoint, that creates the opportunity to reduce the tax rate by approximately 6 cents. However, it is important to consider not only what is possible, but what is sustainable for the town. Reducing the rate to that level may not allow the town to contribute significantly to fund balance, which, as I recall, is our reserves that serve as our financial stability mechanism. It would also increase the likelihood of needing to revisit the tax rate in the not-too-distant future. And it has been my experience that citizens often do not recall tax decreases in the same manner that they recall tax increases. So our goal as staff is to provide stability and reduce the need to have the tax rate fluctuate significantly in any given year. And as we've demonstrated to the council at our last budget retreat, the town has partnered with First Tryon Financial Advisors to help us visually realize impacts of tax adjustment or rate adjustments for the future years. The Chazo is here to assist us later in the evening if needed. The town has several large capital needs on the horizon, including a future fire station, improvements at Ren Miller Park, and other infrastructure investments. So the question becomes, how do we balance immediate opportunity with long-term responsibility? And a second scenario will help us to begin to answer that question. With a potential reduction from the Pinecroft-Sedgefield Fire Department, which they have proposed their budget to the county, that we're waiting for them to adopt that, but they are suggesting a reduction of just over 2 cents. So the town could reduce our tax rate by 3 cents while still fully funding our operational needs and our capital projects, while setting aside approximately $350,000 into our fund balance. That's our savings. This approach would provide tax relief while also maintaining flexibility for future decisions. It also positions the town to respond to future needs without disruption. And when we think about the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, which are stability, predictability, and continued investment in the community, this scenario begins to align closely with the council's goals. Just so you understand that for the average homeowner, and considering that $325,000 is an average tax value, we all know that some will be more, some will be less. The reduction of 3 cents would result in an annual decrease of just under $100, or around $8 monthly. Sorry, I was on the wrong
You went
slide.
backwards one time.
What's
I
that?
think you went backwards one slide.
I went backwards once. I apologize. So this is the slide that shows you what an average tax bill at our current rate at 65.5 cents would be if it reduced to 62.5, the difference of about $97.50 or $8.13 a month. There has also been some community discussion about the revenue neutral rate. And while revenue neutral may appear attractive on the surface, adopting that rate would require eliminating every capital project that we have planned and utilizing approximately $250,000 from our fund balance. So you would have to pull $250,000 out of your, quote, savings account to balance the budget if we went with revenue neutral. And that's due to the way the calculation is structured under state law. It does not account for our real-world obligations, such as the Pinecroft-Sedgefield Fire Department and Sheriff's Office contracts, which are also based on tax valuation. So it is an important reference point, but it does not really reflect the full operational realities of the town. Before I conclude, I want to highlight several key items for council's discussion this evening. This budget that you have as a preliminary budget includes funding for our critical capital projects and infrastructure improvements, while also maintaining all of our core service levels. At the same time, it does not include any new staffing positions, including the previously discussed public information officer, in keeping with the council's emphasis on resource stewardship. As discussed previously regarding the communications function, the staff believes that the current personnel can support those responsibilities on a temporary basis, and some high-level role expectations, I'll be providing those to you this evening. The budget does include our water meter replacement project and the implementation of a customer-facing utility portal, which will improve operational efficiency and customer service. As discussed in our last meeting, this year marks the completion of the town's recent water and sewer rate study with Reftelis. And as we discussed previously, the study recommended that sewer rates remain steady, while water rates would increase by approximately 7.5%. Following the discussion with the council at the last meeting, council supported moving forward with the water plate meter replacement and our customer utility portal project. And to fully fund that initiative, the recommended increase adjusts to approximately 10.5%. To accommodate for rounding purposes in the billing software, that would equate to an 11.5% increase on water only. For the average customer, this results in an increase of about $3 or less per month. As you all know, Councilmember Westmoreland requested some additional information yesterday regarding our golf course financials, and I wanted to provide that to you this evening. Through the end of the third quarter, revenues are tracking at approximately 77% of budget. Our expenditures are below target, below budget, at approximately 69% for the golf maintenance shop and 64% for the golf pro shop. At this stage of the year, at the end of quarter three, we would typically expect revenues and expenditures to be about 75% of the budgeted numbers. So based on current trends, staff is anticipating that we're either going to meet or exceed revenue projections while maintaining expenditures below budgeted levels. You'll also find, and I have included those in your packet, the nonprofit funding requests, which Faith can review in greater detail. Of note, there is one new request that's been submitted by Fusion Soccer, and one organization, the Historic Jamestown Society, has requested an increase over prior year funding levels. I also want to discuss the Riverdale Pump Station capital project. While that total project cost is estimated at approximately $19 million, Jamestown's share of that is approximately $3.6 million, which has been reflected appropriately within our capital planning and in this budget. I do want to thank Paul. I do want to thank Paul because he was able to review those numbers and identified that discrepancy. Thank you, Paul. The proposed funding level for the Guilford County Sheriff's Office is included at $525,000. After a lot of discussion and some review of our numbers, that staff believe that this will continue to support the 24/7, 365 service that our residents have requested, and we are seeking council's direction, to ask Rob to finalize that contract. Additionally, our budget includes a significant deposit of about $1.8 million to the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority for Jamestown's share of the emerging contaminants and capacity expansion projects. So in closing, this budget reflects a balanced and responsible approach. It not only meets our current needs, it addresses our known capital requirements, and it maintains the town's ability to navigate future challenges. Staff have worked diligently to present a budget that is both transparent and sustainable. We're prepared to answer any questions that you may have. I did want to say, as we look forward, tonight's discussion is an important step in the overall process. And following this workshop and the consideration of council's input, staff will move forward with finalizing budget documents, and an initial public hearing, as you did on Tuesday, was scheduled for May the 19th. Final approval and adoption is anticipated at the June 23rd council meeting. That's all I have for you. Ready to begin our discussion.
Matthew, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
If you go back a couple slides, maybe, no, go forward. Right there, that one. Is that difference if valuations stay, is that based on what our current valuation is? Like, so you said at 0.655, the bill would be $2,128, and it would drop about $100 at 0.625, but is that based on what the value is now, not the reevaluation?
So it doesn't matter either way. If your home is valued, an average would be about $325,000 or so in Jamestown. If it is valued at $325,000, your tax bill at 65.5 cents would be $2,128.75. If you drop 3 cents, which is what we're proposing tonight, that would could comfortably do that, drop 3 cents to 62.5 cents, it would drop the bill to $2,031.25 or $97.50 a year, or roughly $8.13 a month. I did that as a visual to help understand what the impact of 3 cents would look like.
I guess, do we know with the revaluations, will 325 be the average home price?
I can't answer that now because I haven't seen all of the numbers, and they weren't readily available. I just tried to find a number that was reflective of our tax base now.
Okay.
Yes.
And then go to that other slide that you were just on, the last slide there.
Yep.
So I guess I'm curious how, if we had a revenue neutral rate, is it just because of increasing costs that we would have to, I understand like why capital projects would maybe have to be eliminated, but why would we have to go in the fund balance, just because of?
So the difference there is roughly the Pinecroft Sedgefield fire contract. It
Okay.
also fluctuates up with tax value. So we have that much more that we would have to pay, even if they're going down a couple of cents. We still have an increase because the valuation of the property values went up.
Okay.
You know, and certainly, you know, we can talk about it. You can cut different things from the budget. I'm not saying that's the only thing. I'm just trying to give you an understanding that $850,000 of capital projects would have to go away.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how the
Sure.
math worked there.
Yep. The revenue neutral rate would be roughly 18 cents lower. I don't think that would be a fiscally responsible approach, just because we would have a very difficult time keeping the doors open.
So I had
You'd say-
a few questions, Matthew. I know when I looked through the budget, again, you're proposing like a 13% increase in overall property tax revenue for next year. So you're going from a number of like 3.8 to 5.3 or something?
It's close to $2 million of
Okay.
additional property.
And
Look,
part
yeah.
of what I guess this is what I was going to ask. So when I looked through your preliminary budget, there was no number plugged in there for appropriated fund balance?
Yes, it is.
Or where's that?
It is.
Where's it at,
The
babe?
bottom line, if you look under department, it's at 627, 165 approximately.
Where is it? Where is it?
Go to which
If you
page?
look at your.
Summary of all funds?
Summary of all funds.
The summary of all
If
funds.
you look at
map.
the
Yep.
expenditures for general fund, it's that last line right there.
Which line is that?
The very last line that says, it's the reserve line.
The reserve
Oh,
for
the one,
future expenditures.
so instead of the normal budget where it says appropriated fund balance,
Well, yeah, we
you're
don't
calling
do
it your
that.
reserve for future,
You have to balance revenues with expenditures. So we have
Oh, I
an
know- I know.
overage in revenue, so the expenditure has to go somewhere, and that's where it will lie.
okay. I just know that last year's budget had a fund balance number like $1.2 million.
We probably use some of that fund balance, yes. But fund balance is a type, you consider it a revenue even though it's your savings, that's where it goes. But when you're trying to balance a budget, if you're over in your revenues, you have to put that in the expenditure line as well to balance.
Right, I guess.
Right now, we don't really have an appropriated fund balance line because we're not using appropriated fund balance as any part of the budget. Currently, we don't need to do that.
Okay, again, it depends on where we end up setting the tax rate.
Yes.
That's correct.
Has a certain component to that. So, again, I'm trying to track the number that you've got out there. Explain to me again what you're proposing in the way of a 3% reduction in the fire department.
So Pinecroft Sedgefield is proposing just over I think it's 2.35 cent reduction in their budget, which will reduce our liability as well. My recommendation, based on everything that we've got here, we can fund all of our operational needs, all of our capital needs, which are incredibly important, and go down on the tax rate 3 cents, while putting some fund balance, some money back into fund balance to help grow that, because the council, it's very alluring to want to cut taxes. Everybody wants to cut taxes. I don't like taxes either. Everybody wants to cut taxes. But we have some large capital expenses that are going to be coming up, and I would like to position the town to be in a good position to pay for that debt service going forward. Did you happen to look up approximately? It's about a $12 million estimated cost for doing the fire station. I wanted to say it was somewhere around $200,000 in debt service annually. I can't recall off the, she can look it up in just a minute.
Okay.
And I'll say, Scott and I had a conversation a little bit earlier today that we've determined that, like, the bathrooms that are going to be built the accessible bathrooms that will be built at the park may come in higher than expected, and we may actually have to put something towards that. And if we do, outside of the grant funding, it will come from fund balance. So having additional money in the fund balance, it keeps you from having to fluctuate wildly your tax rate every year.
Yeah. So a question on the fire department budget. I'm a little confused because in your preliminary budget, it shows a 24% increase in the funding for the fire department next year compared to this year. And you're saying, you're saying that we can take the tax rate down by 3 cents. I'm not understanding how that's working.
I'm not sure I understand the question, so help me.
Well, the
understand
question
what
is,
you're-
in your preliminary budget on
Right.
page 4 of 9, it shows the fire
Under the
department.
general, the detail of the general fund?
Yeah, general fund,
Gotcha.
5,300, 4,900. It shows a proposed increase in the funding for fire services, which I'm assuming is the fire contract, of 24%.
Right, and I know you're working on it, Faith.
And so
But,
that's, what drew my attention to it was, last year I know that there was the increase that was necessary in the contract, and it applied, it was sent forward to increase the tax rate by 3 cents. And now this year, this shows a 24% increase, and you're saying it'll decrease it by 3
That's
cents.
because we still have to base it off the tax revaluation to do their contract. Their tax rate is also based off of the tax.
they're
House.
tied to the tax valuation. So
So,
with that increasing, that will go up. And there are a lot of other factors that are at play at the General Assembly and otherwise. But if it does hold true, which we expect it will increase our cost to them as well, approximately 24%. Does that make sense?
yes, that's correct. And I have double-checked these numbers with Derek, Chief Carson, and, he's in agreement with the numbers as well.
So if you look
They've
at.
Yeah,
done
I'm
they've
just-
done their calculation
Yeah.
too, and so.
It's just-
Because it's based off of tax reval, it makes that number higher because the tax valuations on the properties have gone up, even though they have proposed a lower rate.
Is it essentially like they're not going revenue neutral?
I don't
Is that,
think so.
do you know what I mean?
They get more money from the county? I mean, I'm not following all this.
So if you look at that line item, 1.362, $1,362,826 is the preliminary budget for our side. Last year, our current budget is just over $1,098,526.
And some of
That's
that,
roughly the $250,000 that I was referencing earlier, that we're still going to be responsible for, even given their reduction in their tax rate at the district level. That is because the county's valuation of the property did go up. So it will increase their cost to us as well.
and there's some of that, we have to pay fire inspection fees to the
Right.
county, and that's included in that budget as well, but it's like $14,000. It's kind of small.
So they're not actually getting an increase in their budget, it's just simply paying the cost of what the valuation going up is going to be, is that?
The tax valuation has broad implications for all of us.
Right.
Including the fire department. I know the chief is here with us tonight, and if I've said something wrong, chief, let me know. but it will have implications for them as well, and their revenues will go up, as well as, you know, they have some expenditures. I know they have some capital expenses that they're planning for the not-too-distant future, but they have requested to go down, I think, 2.35 cents
Right.
to balance, and we've accounted for that in this number, which is the 1.362.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that it's not necessarily a budget increase for them. It's just simply the fact that we're all having to pay more for the valuation of the
Yes,
properties.
that's
So they're not
correct.
actually
It's-
getting more money to do
Yes, sir.
whatever. It's paying off, or paying the property value that's gone up.
That's correct.
Faith, I have another question, again, just math-wise. So, okay, so, revenue neutral, it said we'd have to lower the tax rate about 18 cents. The proposal is to lower it about 3 cents. So, just like like on a basic level, does that mean we would, if, without the, say, no revaluations happened at all, and everyone's home values stayed exactly what they are currently, does that mean we would be looking at a 15-cent tax increase this year?
I can't really say, I didn't do the numbers on that. I've just done the numbers on basically what I know at this point. I would have to go back. So if something were to change at the state level, I would have to start all over again, pretty much.
There is a proposal out there, if you're following the General Assembly, to place a moratorium, and that may have really significant implications to what's going to happen with our budget. We're watching that, following it closely. I don't know any odds as far as whether that'll pass or not. If it does pass, we have to basically go back to square one, as Faith said, and start over from scratch. Which is why I would encourage you to reach out to your legislators and let them know that you're deep into the budget process at this point. This is not something that you can easily start from scratch and redo.
So I think the point that Sarah made is important. I think we need to understand, again, I look at things in sort of simple terms. I know what I got last year in the way of a property tax bill component, both for Jamestown and Guilford County. And, what I'm driving for in terms of my goal is to see if there's an ability to get the same amount of taxes that I have to pay next year. So if my bill was $3,000 last year, I'd like for it to be $3,000 this year. And the math here is a little bit confusing and hard to follow. I'm sort of tracking like Sarah. I think, what you're proposing is probably equivalent to a 14-cent tax increase, or maybe a 14% increase. So that's where I'm driving. If we have to talk about spending on items, I think that's maybe something that we need to do as well. Because I'm not looking, at least this is one council person speaking, I'm not looking at effectively, having our residents and businesses necessarily pick up a tax increase through this revaluation process, and however it sort of plays out with the ultimate number in math. And, so again, if we have to talk about, spending in places and what might need to be reduced or eliminated, I think, that's certainly something we're prepared to do.
And I know Chazzo is going to plug in here, and for those watching at home, it's going to be difficult for you to see. It may even be difficult to see in here. Paul, do you mind hitting that bank of lights for us, just so that we can do a little bit better? With the financial model, he can throw information in there and maybe answer those questions a little bit better than we are prepared to do on the fly. But, we are taking the numbers that the county gives to us, what to expect as far as.
Yeah, I know it's all confusing in that
Yeah.
regard, yeah.
I mean, I would love also to pay the same thing that I paid last year for groceries, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we also have rising costs of goods and services that we have to account for, so.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yep. Do you have a answer for what it would look like if we were to go revenue neutral? Can you put that in there?
So,
what that does to the budget and fund balance and those types of things.
so the revenue neutral tax rate of 47.65. If I just compare year over year property tax revenues, see that that takes you from about 4.26 million to 4.3 million dollars, compared to about the 5.9, I believe, that it was under the current budget as it stands. And so that's, $1.6 million that's coming out of your available revenues to cover the current proposed expenses, whether it's operations, salaries and benefits, capital. And so in turn, you would have to balance your budget with the fund balance appropriation. So whereas right now Faith has about a $600,000 or so reserved for future expenditures, that $1.6 million reduction in revenue turns into a $1 million fund balance appropriation that would then continue to kind of build upon itself year over year unless there's some corrective action taken with regards to future revenues or future expenditures.
So to put that in layman's terms, if you go revenue neutral, you have about $1 million shortfall that you have to make up. And that's why I said $850,000 of capital projects. It would wipe all of that out, and you would still have to find $250,000 either in the budget or take it out of your fund balance savings type to balance the budget. I do not recommend, and I don't think the staff would ever recommend, trying to reach revenue neutral. Because of the way that Faith is required to calculate revenue neutral and the operational realities that we have with our sheriff's department and fire department contracts, yeah, they're based on tax revenue as well. It's just not sustainable for us.
So, but what you're saying, Chazo, is that your name, Chazo?
Yes, sir.
I like that name.
Thank you.
What you're saying is it goes from what Faith has scheduled, like a $600,000 use of appropriated fund balance, to $1 million?
It goes from a $600,000 surplus to a $1.1 million deficit. So roughly $1.6 million swing.
So, go ahead.
And that puts us borderline our fund balance policy, I believe.
Yeah,
Yep,
that would-
so,
Yeah.
so that would wipe out most of your fund balance, available fund balance.
Yeah, and it would put us below our fund balance policy, which,
You would have to find a way to refund that, which is essentially a tax increase.
Well, part of what
We would have
part of
to-
what I wanted to know and ask for is again, some kind of projection about year end, because when I've looked at the budget, it looks like consistently every year, we end up with a surplus, if you want to view it that way, that rolls back into the general fund balance. And
Thank
part
you.
of it-
That's a lot of hard work by staff. Thank you.
well, some of that
Well-
are projects that we may not get done that year that we
True.
have to reappropriate the following year. There's a lot of variances into that. There's a lot that factors into that, so.
Sure.
And the same thing on water sewer, like if you don't get projects done this year, that'll carry into next year, we have to reappropriate those. And so, eventually, somewhere, the money does get spent.
Can I ask a question before I forget what my question was? Okay.
Sure.
I actually had two questions. The first one is, so what you're saying is the difference, for example, if we have we're collecting the same amount of money, the reason that we need more money the following year is because, like just something like gas prices that it's going to take to fuel the vehicles and that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's 1,000 other costs that are going up. Anything that's on a truck is going to be expensive, more expensive because of their gas and stuff like that, something as simple as that. So the money is not going to go as far that you had, the pot of money that you had, let's just say there's one pot, and it's not going to go as far because everything has gotten to be more expensive. And so even though we're paying for let's just say the exact same things across the board, it doesn't go as far because the cost has gone up. Okay, that's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. My second question is more theoretical and not, it's just kind of a wondering. It's not directly tied to this. One of the things I looked at was the tax rates in towns around us and towns that look like us. I mean, everything from Greensboro, High Point, Summerfield, to Trinity, and everything else. And I looked at from 2018 to 2025. Now, this is not an accusation, this is just clarification and stuff. Everybody's tax rate went up. The highest that anybody went up was like 6% during that time, not 6 cents, but 6% of what they were paying over that time frame. We went up 28% during that same time frame, from I guess it was 2018 and to 2025. Now, I'm sure there's an explanation. That's just one of those things that you look at, and that's one of the things that people see and go, well, why are we so expensive? Why is that going up? And so, again, it's not really related to this, and I'll take a really short, simple answer. I don't need a big detailed thing, but that's just something that jumps out at you. And why would ours have to go up so much during that same time frame?
I'm happy to try to answer that. Sarah asked that question to me some time ago, and maybe I didn't do a great job explaining it, but I'll do my best. You cannot compare municipalities based on population. Every municipality has they have different overhead, they have a different tax base. You know, Archdale, for example, is very close to us proximately, in proximity. They're also similar to us in the types of services that they provide, very similar. They have a lot of industrial and commercial development, which is valued much higher. And so their tax valuations are not the same as ours. They're much higher, and allows them to keep their tax rate lower, which is why when people, I know that they don't quote unquote like development, but development helps fund your tax revenues, and good development will help really fund, and so you can keep your tax rates lower. There are different, every municipality, regardless of population, they have different, like I say, different sets of overhead, different revenues, different expenses. And so they have, each individual place has to come up with their own tax rate to fund the services they want to provide. One of the choices that's been made in the past is to fund our garbage pickup instead of having a rate that is reflective of what it actually costs for us to provide the service. It's subsidized by your tax rate. If you want to go down on your rate, you could go down further on your rate, but to make that solvent, you would have to go up on the fee to pay for garbage. So it's a lot of trade-offs. I hope that answers it.
It does. It's just, and I understand that they're all different. They have different needs. They have different things. Not everybody has a golf course and things of that nature. I understand. It's just that we're all different, but every one of them was like 4 to 6%, and ours was drastically high.
So
I do understand your explanation.
So I'm going to talk about, and I don't know, so there's a long history here. So I have said this in the past, and I think it's warrants saying it again. In the last operational increase we had for operating expenses was 2008 until 2022. It's 14 years of not going up on your tax rate. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of which includes there's additional development. Some includes revaluation of tax values from the county. But one of the reasons is that the administration or councils in the past didn't seek to do that. For whatever reason, it did put us in a predicament when we got to 2022, and I was the one who had to bear that burden, and break those news. I don't want to go up on taxes, or if we do, we need to do it, in my opinion, need to do that in an incremental, steady rate so that we can be a lot softer in that approach to our citizens. It was necessary to keep providing the levels of service that the citizens want. We've talked about we could reduce levels of service. I don't think that's what the citizens want, and I'm not proposing that we do that. We do have expenses that continue to rise, and we are trying very hard to prepare not only this council, but future councils. I'm trying to leave a legacy of good financial stability for the town, Faith too, all of us. The reason that we have some money that rolls back into fund balance every year is we do have projects that aren't done, and we move that forward. One of the things that council will need to do, one of the first budget amendments you'll do is to reappropriate money for new projects after July 1, for the same projects after July 1. But also, I want to brag on the staff. The staff do a really good job of not spending every dollar that's in their budget. That means that if they don't spend it, it does roll back into our fund balance. So I appreciate your seeing that and making that point.
I appreciate your answer. That was much more involved than
I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
It's complicated.
No, I appreciate the answer, and it was a good answer, and that's what I was actually looking for. And I do appreciate what the staff does. And we're not here to challenge that, you guys don't know what you're doing. It's not that at all. It's just, okay, if we didn't go through this process, you wouldn't need us in the first place. You say, here's the budget, we're going to go and move on. And so we have to kind of look at it and go, all right, what's this about? It may just be a question and answer.
A fair
And I'll be
statement.
quiet, and we can move forward.
Fair statements, fair
Let's
questions.
talk a few more minutes about fire, because I just want to understand this a little more. It might be a question for the chief. So the revaluation is all of Guilford County. And a large part of southwest Guilford County is Pinecroft, Sedgefield, and some of that is, the rural, where they pay like a fire tax or something that's broken out separately on your tax bill. Does that go up, or it will only bring in more because it's based on the higher valuations, I guess, right?
Please.
Don't mind, thanks.
Can you turn the lights back on? Sorry.
So I'm glad to answer the question. What's the question again?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say or ask is, if everything got revalued and you guys get a percentage of the rural, you have the fire fee, or whatever it's called, fire tax fee.
Yeah, fire tax.
And with us, it's built into our town tax. So it would seem like you're going to get a lot more anyway, or Pinecroft, Sedgefield, what you bring in will go up
Right.
exponential, quite a bit. Do you have any idea how that might impact your budget going forward, or help it
Yes,
out?
ma'am. Yeah, so obviously, as we work through our budget process, just like the town as well, we look at our revenues that are projected for the upcoming year. And so with the tax reevaluation, our revenue projections went up based off the reevaluation of the county. So just like in the rural district that we have, it's the same. So our contract with the town of Jamestown is that, and it has been since 2003, the way that the contract was developed is that whatever our fire tax is in our rural district, that same rate is applied to equal the contract in the town of Jamestown. So whenever we looked at our tax rate levied over the proposed reevaluation assessed values at 1672, it gave us a number. We had built a budget off a number, and there was a difference in what our needs were to be able to sustain operations for a lot of reasons, and that's like the town. That's deep. We have a strategic plan that we put into place in 2023 that was community-driven, and we did that through a third party for the reason of we wanted to look at what our community expected on the stakeholders from our community, but also our internal stakeholders. So our strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan, was put into place for that reason, and then we built our budgets based off of those goals that were derived in our strategic plan. So I say that to say when we built our budget this year, we did have to look at the increases in overall expenditures that were natural with inflation and other things, but then also how we continue to build growth into our fire department to look at the continued growth in our district, including the town of Jamestown, with the growth that may not be here today, but is coming tomorrow, right? So we have to put things in place ahead of time to prepare for those. So I know this is a long answer, but I think it's important for the question,
Yeah.
just to have a little bit of context for this council, since this is the first time that we've talked about the fire department stance as it plays into the town of Jamestown. So when we looked at our budget and what that number came out to be, there was a difference in what we would bring in at our current tax rate and what we needed to operate, given all of those things. And we did have increases in services with that budget request, because it wasn't a revenue neutral budget that we proposed. So because there was a difference, we were able to bring down our rate and have a lower tax rate in our rural district, and which would then equate to a lower rate in the town of Jamestown too. So that 14.37 rate that we're proposing, that would come down from 16.72, that 2.35 cent decrease that Matthew was alluding to, that still increases our revenues to sustain the expenses that we need as a fire department, but it does lower the rate some. So there is an increase in cost, but it is an overall decrease in rate. So just to clarify a little bit of that point. So what does that mean? Why are we going up? Why is the fire department's revenues need to go up? That's very complicated and deep as well, and I don't know if that's appropriate for this conversation or for outside of this work session, but I'm glad to explain what our budget entails, how that benefits and the value added for the town of Jamestown. When we look at our budget, it's not just a rural district versus the town of Jamestown. We are one department, and we have been since 2003. And so when we do our strategic planning and we do our budget process, the town of Jamestown and this fire station next door, and that all is encompassed together. So I just want this council to be aware of that as well. It's not just a one-off, and it's all together. And so when we look at our department rule versus the contract with the town of Jamestown, it's all one thing. And so just, again, I don't want to take up y'all's work session, but I am glad to have that conversation with this council, as we do with the staff on the history, of our tax rate history from 2003 to now, and how our department's evolved and the value added since then. I'm glad to have all those conversations, but it is important for the budget process to understand the fire department piece as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and also one more, please. I know that too, when I took the tour, we talked a little bit about where you guys wash up afterwards, and it was this tiny little bathroom, and,
Yeah.
there's sometimes hazardous materials. And especially, I guess, around here, we have some industries and landfills, and I know you sometimes end up on the roof of, the container factory. So because there may be hazmat at times, is there anything, is this crazy to ask, but is there like a higher rate for industry than residents, or is it all the same?
It's all the same, but since as Matthew mentioned, since the values are higher on the industrial and commercial, more revenue is generated from the industry
Right.
rather than the homeowners, just based simply off of the value of the property itself. So it is strictly tied to value, so the value is important to get right when they're evaluating the properties. And I think the county has, in talking with, the tax director has had a lot of talk on that, trying to get those rates right so that everybody is.
Yeah, they did go up. We
Yeah.
talked about that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And does that answer your?
Yeah, and then the last is, and then I promise this is all. I know that there was some accounting mishap or an error or something a year ago, maybe the year before last. Was that resolved and settled and figured out?
Yes, so to Mr. Westmoreland's point as well, yes, we went up last year. That was the first time we had gone up in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that was because we had a revenue shortfall that was experienced mid-year before, well, actually the year prior, but our budgets had already been approved. So it was realized like on June 25th, and the new budget session started July 1st. So we had a $600,000 shortfall in revenue. So we requested a 3-cent increase last year to cover that shortfall without increasing anything, right? So that was, we actually eliminated all of our capital projects and requests for this current budget year to be able to keep that rate as low as possible to just sustain operations, because it was an error caused by Guilford County.
Right.
Through Guilford County. It was out of our control. So that was the largest increase we had had. So, and And we have never, going back to 2003 in our contracts, decreased a tax rate in our fire district. We've always went reevaluation to reevaluation and allowed growth to help sustain operational growth. So for us, this is historic to be able, because of the historic reevaluation, to be able to lower a rate.
Yeah.
So
Okay, great, thank you.
So, just one thing, I would like to have a follow-up conversation with you, and we can schedule a time to do it after the meeting. I want to understand, again, I know we're going to be held accountable for understanding why your costs have gone up 24%, and we've got to provide additional funding for that and justify it. So I would appreciate getting up with you and having a conversation on that, so I can better understand it.
yeah, of course, I would welcome that as well.
And the other thing, Faith, can you tell me again what this, under your front budget sheet here, where you've got the 627,165 reserved for future expenditures, again, what is that for?
That's the excess revenue.
You're,
You have to have a balanced budget. So if you have excess revenue, you have to also increase the expenditures because revenues have to equal expenditures. So that ultimately is the excess revenue. If it's not spent, it rolls into fund balance.
the 627,165.
Yeah, where am I missing this on the revenue chart?
So.
Because I see it under expenditures, but I don't see it in revenue.
627,165 would be if you stayed at a 65.5-cent tax rate. It would yield you about $630,000 of additional revenue. And that's not what my discussion point was that I would recommend going down to those 3 cents. but-
It's in the general fund. It's in that, it's wrapped in that general fund total.
Yeah, I see it as an expenditure, I just don't see it on the revenue side.
It is in the general, in the total revenue and other operating sources, the general fund. It's in that $10 million
So the
total.
627,165 is part of the recommended $5,511,964 under ad valorem taxes?
Yes, ultimately.
Just for clarification purposes.
And some of it could be, vehicles, because vehicles is based off of, the tax rate as well. Some of it, so it's a collaborative of a bunch of things, but mostly, yes, in the tax rate.
I just want to be clear, we're not recommending 65.5 cents. The recommendation would be to go down 3 cents.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. And the mayor did ask a question, is whether or not the current budget included money to pay for the fire department, and it does not because,
The building.
or the building, we are not at that point yet. So we anticipate that would be a part of the next fiscal year's budget.
So maybe I asked my question a little bit different. So what's planned again in this item reserved for future expenditures? Are the things planned there?
No, that's the excess revenue. That unspent would roll into fund balance at the end of the year. There is nothing planned for that. That is the extra revenue.
Okay.
And because we have to present a balanced budget, revenues must equal expenditures. If your revenues include that, the expenditure lines have to include that.
Okay.
So Faith, but this is at the current tax rate or?
Yes,
or
ma'am.
the- So the-
It is, and I did this budget based off the current tax rate.
Okay,
I wasn't
okay.
sure where we needed to go because
I
I
see,
haven't gotten
okay.
a lot of input from council. And that's where we're at tonight, is to get input from you guys to see how you want to move forward. I based this preliminary budget based on the information that I had.
Okay,
And-
so the proposed is not really, the proposed 2026, 2027 is not inclusive of the proposed actual tax rate.
Right.
That's
Okay,
correct,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
We did not want to assume anything.
Okay,
And
And we
as-
wanted you to see that if you stayed where you are, you would have a revenue increase, of $627,000.
okay. So the new proposed tax rate, maybe you haven't done this calculation yet, the new proposed tax rate
We can show you that.
That, okay, would that get rid of that excess, that extra 600?
It would drop about roughly half.
2.5 cents.
Okay.
So if you were to drop it 3 cents, that roughly $627,000 surplus is more or less cut in half to just under $300,000 or so.
Okay.
And that's
So
a
why
one-
would we want 300 and something thousand dollars extra?
Oh, and so, I'm
It's
sorry.
not
it
already
was-
accounted
it wa-
for.
Instead of 350, you're closer to what, 269?
Okay, so.
269,000.
Why would, I guess I'm asking, why would we want
So-
$80 that are extra that aren't?
At some point, you know, in the not-too-distant future, this council will be responsible for finding a methodology for paying for that new fire station. And have you done that yet? You were working on an idea of what a annual installment payment would be on a $12 million loan at 5.5%?
So just by way of example, you know, if the fire station were to cost $12 million and you were to finance the entirety of that project, maximum term that you could amortize that over per local government commission guidelines would be 20 years. And if we assume a planning interest rate, 4.5%, that's probably a little bit above market, but recognizing that you might be a year or so out, want to keep a little bit of conservatism in there. But your first payment on that loan wouldn't hit until your fiscal 2028 budget. So per Matt's, you know, guidance, that's why there's no funds included in the budget right now. But that payment, if you bear with me a second.
I'm in the front row, I can't see that, so I'm gonna let you go.
I need you to read it from back there, Jim.
That first year principal and interest payment would be just shy of $1.2 million.
The first payment would be?
Yes, and it would step down incrementally thereafter, but you would effectively need to have that amount of money available in your 2028 budget, whether it's recurring revenue, perhaps tapping into fund balance, some combination of the two to be able to cover those payments.
Okay, but that's if we were to totally on our own fund a new fire station?
Correct.
And that's next year that we would be talking about the financing for it, not this upcoming fiscal year, but the fiscal year after.
My thought process here is to try to set the council up, the town up, to have a little bit of availability for fund balance to pay a down payment or something like that, to reduce your annual installment payment, but also so you have money in the bank that you can use for that project. I mean, clearly at $1.1 or $2 million on an annual installment, you know, at that point, you would probably need to start looking at a tax increase. And as we all know, people do not like tax increases as much as they like decreases. But I'm also trying to find a methodology that will allow us to give something back to the citizens, knowing that they are in a difficult revaluation year.
So do we need to talk about spending items and suggestions for changes?
Say that again?
Do we need to talk about spending items and suggestions for changes tonight, or is that a different meeting?
I need to know everything, you know, for us to be able to present this at the May 19th budget, public hearing, we need to know everything that the council wants us to look at and do.
Okay. So a couple things that are just sort of out there for me. One is, and this is on the general fund, maybe you go to the general fund CIP list, since I assume that this all plays back into the bottom line, right? So, one question that I had was related to,
General funds, yeah.
we're appropriating another $100,000 in there next fiscal year for Main Street strategic planning, and what the thought is behind that.
That's a direct result, now I'm not going to take Jose's air, but that's a direct result of the council's request to fund some sort of mechanism to look at Main Street and improving aesthetics along Main Street.
Okay. And I thought we already funded and approved at our last meeting the $50,000 for the contract for the line item above that, the Main Street corridor study.
That is for transportation only, is that correct, Jose?
Correct, yes.
But we've already funded that, so why does it show up again in this budget?
If you look, that's number 19, and number 19 is reappropriate funds from the prior fiscal year.
Number 19.
So basically, if the project doesn't get finished this year, we'll reappropriate those funds.
Okay, so that's like old money, that's not new money.
Correct.
But item 100,000, the one below it is new money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's funded out of operating budget, fund balance.
Which line item on that?
I mean, my suggestion would be, we don't know yet what's happened, what's the outcome of the transportation study is going to be. I do know that we've talked a lot about wanting to do some additional planning work on behalf of council. I mean, I would look at either taking that item out or reducing it in half, because we don't know what that is yet. And where I asked Jose about the schedule of the first phase of this thing Tuesday night, and it looks like it's a 3 or 4 month effort. I mean, there will be a likelihood that there will be some kind of an ability to get into a phase 2 of the study, but again, I just don't know what that might look like yet, and just, trying to find ways to reduce cost.
So for the Main Street strategic planning, which is item 15, your recommendation would be to strike that from the budget?
Yeah, I'd take it out, or I'd put half
Is
of it
there a
in there.
consensus? I mean,
Where are we looking? I'm sorry, what page?
Item 15, it's under the
CIP.
CIP.
Oh,
It's
the
in the back.
item
It's a general
15.
fund
All right,
CIP.
yeah. All right, sorry.
Where are the beginning phases of that, correct?
So I would say, I mean, again, my suggestion is to strike it, or if we need to maintain something, it would be half of that cost, $50,000. Because I do think, based off of where we're at, we will likely finish the first phase of work between now and the end of the calendar year, so there may be a phase 2 that can start up early next year with some of the things that we've talked about from a planning perspective, so.
No, I got it.
Do you do?
So you want to take it off of CIP altogether or move it out a year?
I was saying about either taking it off altogether or basically reducing that to $50,000 from $100,000.
so my experience with planning consultants is that $50,000 would not yield you any type of deliverable. So my suggestion would be to move it out 1 year rather than to take it all the way off. I know that the council spent a lot of time
Yep.
giving us input on that, and we can always reevaluate it in the next budget year.
And again, that was a result from the budget last session that we had about
Yeah, yeah,
potential
yeah,
phase 2.
yeah.
So that's why we added that.
Does everybody have-
I'm good with moving it out.
I don't have mine, but I can look with her. It's in the back.
I'm good.
So does the second,
I'm just trying to get it out of this fiscal year or reducing in half.
is the second part of this kind of dependent on what information we get from the first part? Is that what?
Not necessarily, it will be connected, but in the last budget session, we had a lot of interest in doing a downtown area
Right,
plan that's
right.
just outside of transportation. And typically, those plans and those consulting services do
Yes.
cost a lot more.
Right.
So that's why we aim towards that, obviously conservatively.
Right.
But that was the reason for the addition.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna, I've got some, in my office.
So
Apologies.
That's okay, thank you.
I'm good with moving it out a year or half of that cost, but not 100,000 this year.
I'm good with moving it out a year and seeing what the transportation one yields. That one's, we're already moving forward with, right?
That's perfectly fine.
Move it out, so the consensus is to move it out 1 year to the
27, 28?
28.
Yeah, I think that was an area of focus for us, and I think the concern, or the challenge is, we're trying to find ways to, where can we reduce a little bit? And yes, that was the thing we asked for.
Yeah,
But it's also
absolutely.
something that we can say, is
And
that
it-
something we can?
Yeah, and I
delay
think
based on
that's
that first
Fair
really
enough.
fair, and that was part of your strategic plan update. You guys did prioritize that as part of your, and I think that's why we added it to the
Yeah.
following year.
Yeah, no, you did
Have some
exactly
level of
right.
urgency, but I think we're fine with staff and management to move that next year and see the results of the quarter study. I think that's a fair point.
So is there a consensus? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes. Susan, you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. The next item that I want to get more information on again was the trash truck for the new subdivision, the 525. Can you remind us again what we've got in the way of reimbursement coming to us from D.R. Horton and how that might be factored into
What page are we on now?
timing of when we would get it in this?
Sure, that reimbursement would be $235,000. So
But we're budgeting for
How
the
much
full
was it?
amount to buy the truck, right?
We do, we would have.
So when would we get the 235 from D.R. Horton? Would it come back into this fiscal year?
I can take that in, sir. The development agreement states that on the 100th development clearance certificate for the single-family side of D.R. Horton, we would send the request to D.R. Horton for that,
Invoice them.
for that invoice. We're at number 63. So we're getting fairly close, and as they're building Plat 1B and they're moving forward to development, I think we'll be there in the next couple months.
So do we have their reimbursement scheduled in here in the way of other revenue?
Yes.
235 is already in here?
100 pounds.
Okay, that was what I was making sure of. And then the other thing, and this sort of, to me, I know initially in your first budget, you had like $300,000 scheduled for civic center improvements. At least the one item that I'll bring up, probably two items, and maybe a need to put a little bit of money in this budget. One is when I'm sitting here looking over the way at Chazo with our technology that we've got with the little projector unit and the screen, I think and would sort of recommend to my colleagues that we look at investing in a couple of large screen monitors to put in here, because when we had our rezoning public hearing, I was in a pretty favorable position where Jim Gibson's sitting and you could see everything directly, and it was, well, I tell you, I couldn't really see everything directly because it was so small, but
I would agree with you. I think that that's a wise investment. I think the last estimate that I had to do a couple of large TVs, similar to the ones that we have in the staff conference room where you all have your meetings, is something of that size, would be about $20,000. The challenge is to make sure that they are simulcast, and both TVs are getting the same information at the same time. But I think that would be great for the citizens to be able to see a little bit clearer from their
yeah, that's the
vantage
whole,
point,
that's the
as
whole
well as
goal.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea would be that we would mount them on some type of an articulating mount that could be pushed against the wall to keep them out of the way when they're not in use.
And I know the other item that our mayor's brought up before is the lighting in the room. Is
The
there
lighting,
the lighting in this room? Is there a cost-effective option for that?
I have not tried to investigate the lighting components in here. It is harsh. I agree with that. We could get quotes on that, but, again, with trying to reduce costs, I want to be sensitive to that. The 375 for the remodel was pushed out to 27, 28. So I have no idea what to
Yeah.
give you as far as a number for lighting.
So I think what I would suggest to my colleagues is that we put 20,000 in for the monitors, for you to look into the lighting, and then if we have a need to come back, after we get that cost and do some kind of budget adjustment, we could do it then.
Yes, sir. That's a reasonable approach.
And then, do you have a plan already developed for this Civic Center master improvement, or is that something that needs to be done by an architect?
It is something that we would have to hire an architect for. We had some preliminary discussions with the architect that's done a lot of the architectural work here at Town Hall
Okay.
about options, and that's been several years ago, but those conversations were tabled because we've had some challenging budget years, so.
So for clarification, the money that you had for, I can't think of the phrasing, not renovations, but what was the,
Remodel.
yeah, that's already been pushed out?
It
Or
was-
we're talking about pushing it out and then replacing it with the TV and the lighting?
Yeah, no,
No, so we would not bring that money. We've got that amount pushed out to 27, 28.
But it's already done, and so that's not in the budget.
It's not in here. We would be basically adding a CIP item for this coming fiscal year of $20,000 for the improvements for,
It's not
AV.
replacing the.
right. And then if we needed to, if we found a good solution for lighting, as we work on that, we might need to bring that back for a budget amendment, possibly. Very, very fair request.
so the other question I had, because I don't know about it, is we've got 20,000, and this is in the Water and Sewer Fund CIP. So I'm flipping ahead. Again, don't, if my colleagues have questions about stuff on the general fund stuff, just throw them out there. But the water and sewer under item 49, we've got $20,000 scheduled for a fuel tank.
Yep.
And just give me some
Sure.
understanding of what that is.
We've had some challenges keeping the fuel tanks full. They're 500-gallon tanks, is that right, Paul? At the Public Services Shop? Yep. Some of the tanks that we have are leased, and some of them are tanks that we own. The idea would be that we would turn the tanks that we lease back in, we would purchase our tanks. We would have 1,000-gallon tanks down at the Public Services Facility. That's the one that tends to use more fuel because they have larger trucks, the garbage trucks, that type of thing. We ran into some of these challenges. We've run into them generally at the worst possible times. They're generally before major storm events. We had a real challenge trying to get fuel topped off, and we were empty right before the snow event. That's not a time that we need to, and everybody is making sure that they're topping off their tanks at the same time too, right? So we talked to the fuel provider. They said, you know, it would be wise for you to purchase your own tanks instead of leasing them. We looked at possibilities of different providers, but if we, just because of the service issues that we've had, customer service issues, but if we own our own tanks, we have the ability to switch fairly easily. What we would do is take the 500-gallon tanks that are in place and move those up to the recreation facility and then install new 1,000-gallon tanks at the Public Services Facility.
So is this for gasoline? This is how you
It's-
fill your trucks and everything?
It's gas, it's diesel, it's off-road diesel, and DEF,
So it's
diesel
got, like,
exhaust fluid.
different containers or? is
They're
it-
all in different tanks, yes.
And it's like at the gas station with a hose and everything.
That's correct. Yep.
Fancy.
And let's see. So here's my next item. I know that it looks like you budgeted like $525,000 for the sheriff's contract. My recommendation is to take that to $500,000, keep it where we've had it before, just because as I've gone through and done sort of my own due diligence and math on that, the simple way to understand the sheriff's contract is we do pay for 24/7, 365 deputy support. That works out to staffing equivalent of 4.2 FTEs. With $500,000 worth of support, effectively, we're providing the sheriff's department with a staffing equivalent of 4.7 FTEs. So when they talk about a need for us paying for additional staff, when they have people on vacation or training or whatever, from my perspective, that's sufficient. And, you know, I would recommend that to my colleagues in terms of consideration about that dollar number. I just, you know, again, I still have some challenges with the fact that we're even doing more than the 4.2 FTE cost, which would be about $400,000, but I'm willing to live with a continuation of the same number that we budgeted last year for this year. And again, I say that from the perspective of, you know, there was some confusion in our last budget meeting about how much they were actually invoicing the town for the services, and we thought the number was higher, and now it sounds like the number's lower. But I'm comfortable with staying at the $500,000 number instead of $525,000.
I talked with our contact there at the sheriff's office who does the billing and things, and he's the one that sent me this number. And I believe it's my understanding that, you know, they have costs that have rise like gas and, you know, their employee things. And so that additional $28,000 would roughly cover just their cost of doing business.
How many years had we been at the 500,000?
It's been a while, at least, you know, from as long as I've been here, and I've been here 4 years.
So there's never been an increase
No.
from the 500?
No, and after talking with him, we're gonna end roughly around there, give or take. I don't think we'll be over the 500,000 this year. We'll be slightly under. But as far as their estimates for next year, that is what they gave me. And I just, you know, consider that to be just, you know, the cost of doing business, that, you know, and they're paying their employees, paying for gas, you know, paying for fringe and things of that nature.
The good news is
Meeting you talked about when we're taking 625.
Yeah, that was fast numbers, and I was doing that in a hurry.
So we don't need to, we stay at a number that we're all comfortable with?
Yes.
Not play around with that 625 that we
Right.
talked about in the first
Yes,
budget?
and I confirmed that with the sheriff's department, because I wanted to make sure, you know, so I did confirm that with them and go back and double check numbers. Rob and I both did. So yes, we'll be a little bit under the 500,000 this year, and but their proposed would be around 528, including, you know, their cost of doing business and things of that nature going up. I know he did mention, you know, gas. I don't know how, you know, with the gas prices being a little higher, I don't know how it will affect them. And you know, they were concerned about things like that, operational cost.
I mean, my thought would be, I'd like to understand, again, using the component of the FTEs with their costs that they provided to you, what that charts out to right now, because again, we're basically with $500,000 giving them like a half additional FTE to provide for coverage and support using their own numbers from last year. Now, they might have gone up a little bit this year, but my thing is, anything over 4.2 FTEs and what that cost is to provide it, you know, I can give some grace about, you know, the fact that you've got employees that you've got to back cover with vacation time and sick time and training time, but, you know, I think I'm good with the 500,000, but, you know, that would be interested to see what their new cost estimates would bear out relative to FTEs, if that would take it down to like 4.6 or something. Anyway, I'm stuck
So
where
my
I'm at.
thought on that is that, given the amount of years that we had not had an increase, and the economic, you know, situation that we are in, I'm comfortable, and I don't know if anybody else is on that, on the 525. I don't believe that we're gonna be able to go under, Jim. I can't see them decreasing, rather.
Yeah,
can't-
I just know that we have
I mean,
consistent.
that would be great
Look,
if they would.
Yeah,
I
we
mean, I
have
just can't
consistently set our
imagine.
number there,
Does
And
any of their
they've
funds
worked
come
towards
from
that.
the property tax pot of money? I mean,
well, I mean, that's another,
So
maybe,
will they be getting more from the county, maybe?
well, I don't know the answer to that question, because that's the whole county, you know,
So
budgeting
how can
process.
we, and we're back at this again, how can we get or somewhat get the information that you're looking for? I think we've revisited this so many times, I don't know how. we
Yeah,
can
I guess if I get their actual cost number, it's easy enough to figure out, you know, how many FTEs that equates to based off of their cost. But I just know, you know, fundamentally, with what we're requesting in the town and have been requesting, with that level of coverage, it works out to 4.2 FTEs. And we've consistently provided more resource to help with some of their staffing backfill needs, you know, so anyway, and the mayor asked an interesting question, because we don't know what the ultimate outcome of the county budget and tax rate will end up being. And, you know, like I brought up before, you know, everybody who lives in Jamestown are also Guilford County taxpayers. So there's some component there of support, revenue support, that is factored into all this from the sheriff's department's perspective. But I don't know, we can just speak for Jamestown.
Within the 4.2 FTE, the full-time employees, is that factoring in the cost? I mean, not just the salary and stuff like that, but it's factoring what it costs for that person to be employed, including gas and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, they gave us their numbers last year, that, you know, I generally did some back of the napkin stuff, and 4.2 FTEs worked out to about $410,000 in cost. But what they've communicated, and where I can understand this, is, you know, you've got these deputies that are assigned to this particular duty, that some of them will be on training, some of them will be on vacation, some of them will be sick. So, you know, there is a need for some supplement, because anything they have to do to supplement, it becomes
Right.
part of our contractual obligation to support.
Sure.
But I think, you know, again, I think the number is fine right now. I don't see any reason to adjust it unless something extreme has happened with their cost. And again, I say that from the standpoint that, you know, everybody is seeing cost increases and cost of living and other things that we experience every day. I'm just doing my best, and we're doing our best to, you know, be good stewards of the resource for the town of Jamestown residents and businesses who are here. And, you know, I'm not convinced yet that that dial needs to move for the sheriff's department's support, that I do think that we're being overly fair with our $500,000 worth of support that they can bill for every year. And just one council member, I don't see a need for that to go to 525. And I do think the other supplement I'll put on that is we do need to sort of finalize whatever new contract language this fiscal year as well.
I agree with the amendment of the contract. Again, I'm just gonna go back to, I just don't believe in my heart that they're going to give us a decrease. But considering the amount of years that they had not got, you know, we've been at the 500,000. I don't know.
Well, you know,
We have not, I mean,
you know, I think it should be $0. So
yeah,
I do, and I think that the people of Jamestown need to decide, do they want 24/7 coverage and
Oh, we
pay, and
talked
not
about
get to a
trying to
revenue,
do
and not get to a revenue neutral tax rate,
we talked,
and just use their county taxes to pay for the sheriffs? Or do they want to have the 24/7 coverage and then less likely to get to a revenue neutral tax rate? I mean, I think that's just a choice that people have to make. My choice would
Good
be,
point.
the first, get closer to a revenue neutral and get rid of this altogether. But that's, again, Sarah Glanville doing that. I don't know what the citizens of Jamestown would prefer.
yeah, we talked, yeah, so, yes, we talked about a survey, a citizen survey, which would
Yes.
help us
We did.
to maybe make a determination on the 24/7. I'd like to hear input from the citizens of Jamestown about, I know we've always had the coverage, but I'm wondering if that would,
So I was gonna say, the good news is that this is reimbursable. You know, so we're only paying them what they charge us to provide the service. Yeah, so they're not, you know, supposed to be making money on this service. That being said, our responsibility as a staff is to try to overestimate our expenses. I'd rather be on the high side of that and reimburse them less, you know, because that's what they charge us. I remember, and I don't remember the exact number of what the citizen survey percentage-wise said, but it was overwhelming in favor of keeping the service as is. Now, there is a caveat. Do they understand all the nuances? Probably not, that come with that, to Mr. Westmoreland's point. But I've been in Jamestown for almost 2 decades. I believe that I can, you know, say with a reasonable expectation that they do not want us to change that level of service for them. I don't think it's an unreasonable amount to go up. I think it's much better than the numbers that we were considering last budget meeting. So that's a positive. But it is the consensus of council to let us know what you want to put in there.
But we're not necessarily cutting any services, we're just simply giving them the same thing that they've always had. It's not
100%,
like we're
yes.
giving them, so are we telling them you now have a $525,000 budget? Or is it, they never necessarily know that, it's just
That-
whatever they,
I asked them what they were looking at for next year for Jamestown, and that's the number they gave me.
They gave you what, 528?
No,
We're talking about 525?
it was, well, to be exact, and it was 525,891.
and how much are we under this year?
We'll be real close to the
To the
$500,000
$500,000.
mark. Let's see.
Give us a second, she's gonna
Yeah,
count on the fly.
Yeah,
It's
because I
okay,
don't want to misspeak.
I'm thinking more philosophically than the details, but,
But
okay.
it'll be close to the 500,000, yep.
Right now, we've paid quarter 1, 2, and 3. We're at 307. 300.
Almost
307,000.
308,000 for the first 3 quarters,
So we've been averaging,
around 100,000.
the highest
Per
quarter
quarter.
we paid was 113, and that was in quarter 2.
And the lowest
And
was
the
quarter
lowest
3.
was quarter 3 at 91,000.
So if you go to the
we'll-
highest,
we'll-
if you go to the highest quarter and put that in the fourth
It
quarter,
would be
it would be a little over $400,000.
421.
To be exact. I mean, you know, our estimate.
Am I missing something here? Or,
If, I mean, if you
so
could easily stick around
if our
500,
bill is gonna be 421 this year, right?
Yeah, well,
hopefully,
roughly. Yeah, I mean, if we were to use.
That feels
highest
like the
number.
4.2 FTEs, and if that's what they're doing, then I applaud them. That's what we're asking for.
I think we just need to direct, Rob, our town attorney, on, if you don't want it to exceed 500,000, I think we need to let them know that. I mean, just for me to try to put a budget together, I needed to ask them, like, what are the expenses gonna look like? I had much rather them give me an estimate that's higher
yeah, I was gonna say.
than we come up short. But if you don't want to spend more than 500,000, I think we need to communicate that.
It just seems unlikely that we're gonna go up $100,000 in 1 year based on, I know that
that's- I
things
think
are more
that's a very
expensive.
fair
That's-
assessment.
That's like the fifth quarter.
I believe that is a fair assessment.
So
Seeing those numbers, I do feel more comfortable with 500.
I don't wanna cut anything. I don't
It's just
wanna
our-
cut police
it's
services.
our
I think
budget.
there's a whole lot of things that go into that, and I understand money and stuff like that, but I think that's just
Includes fuel.
would never be able to explain that. You could talk to your in the face, you'd never be able to explain that, so I don't wanna cut it, but I think 500,000 seems reasonable. You're talking $100,000 more in order for us to get to what we've already budgeted.
Well, it could be some of their things, like, I know their retirement's gone up. Their retirement for the state's a little
different.
differently. Their retirement number is a little different than most.
Why can't they just give us an
They've got
accounting? Why
fuel.
can't they just tell us, why can't they just give us a breakdown?
I have that right here.
Can I just make not a motion, we're not making motions, are we?
Go on.
That we keep it at $500,000 based on the information we have, and it doesn't seem likely that we're gonna go over that. And then we'll continue to look at
I mean,
what we're actually getting for it and move forward.
I don't want to speak for Rob, but I believe that if I paraphrase this correctly, I mean, if not, he can correct us, but I think he said that he would rather be under and do a small budget amendment if we needed to, which is where having fund balance is important. But I think that with these numbers, budgeting at 500 is a reasonable expectation for the same level of service. And, you know, if it does happen to go up
And we can
of
just do it in.
quarter 3 or 4 next year, about this time next year, we can
Do it in
have a look at it.
That would be up to
And then
you
that
guys if
would generate a bit further conversation about you went up over $100,000 in 1 year. Really do need to talk about that now.
Fair.
What would
I'll
happen
just
at
make
this
the
point? We would get Rob to do a letter and say we want to keep the service fee at the 500,000 level. Is that what we do?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there is a motion on the floor. Jim Gibson made a motion.
Are we really making?
Are we doing
You,
motions?
you can, I mean, you can, but you said it, so.
I make a motion that, if y'all remember what I said, that we keep it at
At
50.
500,000.
And
To
just-
keep
I mean,
the
yeah. at,
Guilford County Sheriff's
500.
Department contract
At
not to
500.
exceed $500,000. Okay.
But with, can we add stuff to it? But with making sure that, Rob is in communication with them.
Yes,
to-
100%.
Okay,
That's fair.
okay.
Good catch.
Okay, well, if it's a motion, do I hear a second then?
Is there a second?
Do you need a motion a second, or do you just want to do,
Well, there's a motion.
you can
so-
withdraw the
We've just
motion.
been
if you-
saying,
Well,
we
there-
agree
Just
with
do a
this.
consensus.
You could
Yeah,
do a second,
consensus, I
since
think
there's a
we
motion on the
did
floor, and they could just vote.
Yeah, 500,000.
Withdraw the motion then.
You're not cutting it, just the 500, they,
I'm comfortable with keeping the number at $500,000 for our budgeting purposes. Again, with the information that Faith shared tonight, I'm thankful and hopeful that the Sheriff's Department continues to bill us for the services we're asking for and the FTE count that we're asking for, because the number that she provided would indicate that they may actually be doing that, which would be very good, because I do think, and sort of to pick up on Councilwoman Burgess's suggestion, it would be two things. One is it would be good to have some additional community survey work over the course of the next fiscal year to maybe figure this out a little bit better, because I'm still thoughtful that these other communities in the county get services provided through their Guilford County taxes, and, you know, I know that we're paying for additional support, but the question is really, what is that, you know, is that something that town residents want to continue to have for the community, or is there something different there that we need to understand? And then the other point I made was I think it's, you know, time for us to have a new contract and maybe lock this in more directly with the Sheriff's Department. Again, we can continue to operate with the 1991 or whatever year it was contract, because it's pretty specific around what we're asking for and what's being provided by the sheriff. But if we're, you know, I would think it'd be good for them to update the contract.
The contract does need to be updated, and if, and I don't know if we need motions or not, but is there a motion still on the floor?
There is, yeah,
Would you-
so.
Would you like to
can-
withdraw
I
your,
think that is a yes.
You can withdraw, or he
would
can
you like to
second.
withdraw your motion?
Thought we could put that one to bed for the time being, saying we'll keep it at 500, and the other one will be another
Do you
part.
want to withdraw your motion?
You can withdraw a motion,
You wanna
just do a
withdraw
general
your motion, Or
consensus.
do you want us to vote on it?
It's just,
General
it's
consensus.
essentially a technicality, so you could
Yeah.
just
Just
withdraw it
withdraw
if
your-
you'd like, or there.
Would you like to withdraw your motion, sir?
What do you want me to do?
I want
You know
to,
what we're trying to accomplish, you tell me.
Please withdraw your motion.
yeah, just withdraw it, withdraw it.
I withdraw it.
Thank you. Now I'm good, I'm happy.
Okay, now Katie's in good spirits. I think that it seems like the general consensus would be that we keep it at $500,000 for the next fiscal year, budget accordingly, and then have Rob go ahead and work on finalizing that draft and bringing it to you and the Sheriff's Department for adoption by both, right?
Yes,
All right,
all right.
very good.
So one,
What's their tally? How much?
Tally, I have no idea. We're we're cutting a little and spending a little, it's okay. So the other thing I had was, you know, because I don't really fully understand all the different components to make this up, but when you add it all together, it's a pretty big number as part of our budget, is the other contracted services line item in total. And sort of my thought would be, you know, not knowing what these contracts are, if we were to provide some kind of direction that we wanted to reduce that line item by 5%, what would that look like, and what would be, I'm just,
Which one?
Yeah, which,
Where are you?
well, I'm just saying, if you look at the collective of all these other.
collective of all.
If
I
you
would
look-
recommend against that, because I think you get caught up in, you know, missing what's going on. I mean, if reducing, like, just giving a directive to reduce the overall budget by 5% is very difficult, because the responsibility of the council is to tell us exactly what you do and don't want to do. And so if there's, and that's why capital projects are a little bit easier to focus on, because they're bigger numbers and they're sort of definitive projects. Other contracted services appears in every department, literally. You want to give some examples that might be like mowing contracts for town hall and town properties? What are some other ones?
Yeah, I think the problem is just not knowing what the other contracted services were, to know, I think that's the issue. If we're
This would,
on the right page here.
we don't, I don't think we have anything in here that would be new. This would just be basically continuing contract, like cleaning of town hall, cleaning of golf course, pro
I have
shop.
one that kind of bothers me, if it's all right if I bring that one up because I don't know anything about it, for governing body. So that would, I guess the 4,100 governing body, that would be anything related to what we need to function or classes or
Correct.
fees and stuff. And, but within it, there's 200 and some, well, 100,000 with a professional, I guess that's services, and then 115 for other contracted. It just, you know, I've looked at a few other budgets and cities, and
Your professional services, that's your legal fees under governing.
so that's all the legal?
That's all
the
legal.
attorneys. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was, I guess that was too, is why I wrote you today. Would that also include, that's not finance, that goes somewhere else.
No, this governing body, it's just council-related items.
Right.
And then other contracted, so
So
what,
4990 would be like your audit fees.
No,
Right, no?
not in governing bodies.
Sorry.
It's, you know, if you wanted to do another Citizen Academy coming up,
I think she's
there's
on
fees related to that, that's in there. There is some,
detail general.
The majority of that is your,
and like your videography for your council, meetings, that number's budgeted in there.
the majority is that and your lobbyists.
And yes, they're in there, and, I think there's some training for you guys as well, that's in that budget. That makes up that total of 115.
And I
So-
think that was our struggle to begin with, it's just, that's a whole lot of stuff, which, I mean, I understand it, but it just says other contracted, so you see that on there, and so what is it that we're, to know whether or not it's.
It's a fair question.
It keeps the lights on, all right, makes sense, but it doesn't say that, and so it's hard for us to, or at least hard for me to
It's kind of a
understand.
generic line.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that account code and title.
Well, it makes sense,
been
I just-
there, I guess, since way before
Oh.
me, so.
Many.
So when I looked at the past budget, I mean, the other contracted services in total add up, I'm thinking if I remember this right, about $1.5 million.
for all the departments.
Yeah, so if you took a 5% reduction in that and let the staff decide what they needed to reduce, it would be $75,000 reduction in that line item.
Well, and some things
And
I will.
75,000 is starting to get up close to a penny on the new tax rate.
I will say, you know, there are some things in other contracted services that we have to pay for. I mean, Guilford County charges us a tax collection fee. We have to pay for that. That's roughly $35,000.
Sure,
The DMV, the North Carolina DMV charges us fees as well.
sure.
That's roughly around 11,000. I mean,
I'm just saying, if
It's a
you
whole
had, if
gamut
you
of
had
different
5%
things.
less to work with,
we
you'd
have
have
to
to
have
figure out.
pension audits done,
what's-
that's in there. So,
But there's things that we have to do that are in there, and then there are things that are, I guess that's really the question, is what is it that, I mean, I'm not gonna argue that DMV is gonna charge us money, they're gonna want their money.
I
But
mean,
what else is in there that's not necessarily, I mean, if there is anything,
Like, did you say the lobbyist is in on their contract?
the lobbyists, the Main Street, I had put in there, you know, the Main Street strategic plan. Since you're
Which-
taking that out, that's gonna
100,000.
reduce that down by 100,000.
Correct.
We have to pay for code enforcement, that's another thing. You know, and then planning board videoing, because we put that on YouTube, those kind of things are in there. And then there's just, normal stuff, like, protection systems, which is the, alarms
Security.
around here. Johnson Controls, what do they do? I don't remember.
The fire.
Fire,
Yep, alarm.
fire alarms.
You have contract service for servicing the fire extinguishers.
So,
I know the chief wants us to do that.
there's paving as well, because the motor vehicle fees that we collect, that's budgeted in the streets. So any kind of paving that we do comes out of there, that's roughly $111,000. We pay for, we have engineering services, that we have to pay for. And then in like stormwater, but basically that's like, for Blue Stream, PTRC fees that we have to pay.
Yeah, and I think,
things like
I think we
that.
got the point that it's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's things that we have to pay in there. I get that.
I don't,
Majority, if it's all of it, then so be it, but are there things that are,
I think the
optional
point
that-
is that a broad brush approach
Right.
of reduce it by 5% is not feasible
Right.
for us.
I get it.
There's not enough
so are there
of
things in
anything
there
that's not
that-
required.
Right, and I get that.
Yeah, that's-
I get
that's the
that perfectly.
point.
But it's just that, so is there anything in there that is an optional that is possible, not necessarily by 5%, but just to reduce it? If not,
Lobbyists?
then, okay, but that's,
You know.
we just don't have that information. It just says general or, yeah, whatever, contracted services. So we don't know what all those things are when we're looking at it.
Sure.
So your explanation's perfect, but it just,
Yeah, I don't mind asking, I mean, answering the questions, but, I mean, that's basically what's in there. So
Yeah.
if you
I think
decide
my-
you don't
Well,
want to do the
yeah.
lobbyists, we can take that out.
Yeah, my point was, yeah, so,
the lobbyists.
I guess two things. One is, my point was more around the fact of looking at, not knowing what all those other contracted services are. There's a bunch of them, I'm sure, that are lumped into that $1.5 million. And then thinking about, what you said about conservative budgeting and how budgets are typically pulled together. And if there was a 5% reduction, that would be $75,000 of a
We've hit it with the
1.5.
Main Street study.
Oh, yeah, I know, but $75,000.
Part of it.
Anyway, so that's why I was bringing it up. It seems like, it's something you could find a way to carve that out. But again, your budget and your contract's much better than I do.
Taking the Main Street study out will do a significant chunk.
Okay.
You're better at math than I will ever be,
No.
especially on the fly. I rely on Paul.
So,
But if that's $75,000, as you said, then the Main Street study would hit that. I just want to caution about broad brush directives, because it puts us in a precarious position to make choices that we can't make.
How much are we paying the lobbyist?
That's a $70,000 expenditure that's budgeted.
Hey, that's gone.
so what's the term of that contract?
It's a
month
year-to-year.
to month, or month to month,
Month to month. So,
I believe.
I mean, my recommendation would be, again, I know we're sort of in an interesting time right now with General Assembly leadership, and specifically, it's been a benefit to the town of having the head of the state senate being connected to our area, and our representative is effective too in what he does in terms of Alan Branson. But I do think, I would recommend, as we go into the next fiscal year, that, we should look to terminate that contract, and effectively, try to get what we can get in terms of value and options of strategy with Senator Berger and others between now and the end of the fiscal year, so over the course of the next 3 months. See where that takes us, and we always have the ability, if we need to come back and look at options of having a lobbyist, but, to spend $70,000 a year and, right now have some uncertainty or unpredictability in where this may go with any kind of state funding coming to us for the fire department or the restrooms going forward, absent having a pretty significant leader and set of leaders in Senator Berger and Branson to help support our cause and carry the flag. I just think it's not something, beyond that, I haven't really been able to determine if there's any need for us to have a lobbyist. And again, this is one of those items when I spoke on Tuesday about, a difference of opinion about past decisions that have been made and but I just think we're to the point, I don't see the value in retaining a lobbyist going forward.
I agree. Yeah, I haven't seen what we've really gotten from them, honestly.
Would that come out of the other contracted under governing board?
It would.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that would look better to me.
I think it comes down to what Mr. Wise said about needs versus wants, and it's not, I mean, I'm sure there's some value to that, but in this situation, I'm not entirely sure that we're seeing it, and it could be that it's there and it's just not visible to us, but it just, if we're looking to make a cut, that may be a place to look, but.
Seems we have consensus on that. We'll make that
Yes.
note and budget accordingly.
Is there anything, council, on the capital improvement program general fund under 2627 that you might have any concerns on?
I would like to ask a question of Mr. Scott, please. What is a bed knife grinder?
I was wondering the same
Me
thing.
too.
God, I'm glad you asked that because Scott's been waiting all night for this.
I think
What is a
aside
what?
from,
Bed knife
Bed
grinder.
knifer.
aside from sounding very sexy,
I know.
do something, right?
It's not that sexy.
That's what we were talking about when you said 19 earlier, the funds.
Well, a bed knife grinder is what we use to sharpen our, the bed knives that are on our reel mowers at the golf course. So they're not your traditional blades, they have reels. Each reel has 11 blades, you have to put them on a grinder, they spin grind, and it takes a skilled person to be able to do that. The bed knife grinder, the bed knife goes up underneath your reel, and that's what makes contact and actually clips the grass. Those have to come off every 2 to 3 weeks and reshape them, regrind them. And the current bed knife we have is probably about 30 years old. And it's getting sloppy, it's not staying true.
So y'all have to do this yourself? There's not like a sharpener place that you can?
There used to be a mobile sharpener, but it's very expensive. But I don't even think that he's around anymore. I haven't seen or heard from him in several years. But it's such a constant thing, especially in this time of year and into the main cutting season, because we have 2 greens mowers, 2 tee mowers, 2 fairway mowers. We have a mower that we use on the soccer fields, one that we use at different areas, really just traveling around, because they're all different cuts. It's not something you can change the height of the cut on. For instance, the greens are mowed at roughly 1/4 of an inch. Fairways are 3/4 of an inch. Tees are at 0.85.
And you got some new mowers, so you want to take care of the
Correct.
blades. Is this like a skill that
Very
you
much
have
so.
to train to do?
Yeah, Justin King is our technician out there, and he's very skilled. He actually teaches at Guilford Tech now. And
Really?
yes, ma'am. And they have a turf grass program. So he also teaches this skill over at the college.
Are there other golf courses that maybe would pay him here to have their things grinded?
Most golf courses have at least one mechanic. Most of them have 2 or an assistant mechanic.
Yeah.
Right now, with what we do, we only have 1, but he does a great job on keeping everything sharp. And like I said, with all those mowers, they're constantly having to be looked at. So he's, basically this time of year, he's got 2 in the shop working on those every single day.
Okay. So, how bad are the cart paths that need to be paved, or can part of them be? I'm just, again, playing this game where we're seeing what has to be done now and what can wait a year.
The cart pass, 50,000 doesn't even touch the cart pass on, or
It says 25,000.
Okay, 25,000.
If 50,000
doesn't
doesn't touch, yeah.
25 definitely doesn't touch what we got. That is for constant patching, because we have a lot of trees, and we don't want to take trees down. But the tree roots on the pine trees eat up the cart paths, push them up, make them real bumpy, damage the carts, damage the mowers. So we're constantly doing the worst areas. Therefore, a couple of years, I said 50,000. because we'd do it every other year and do 50,000, because you get a little more bang for your buck from staging.
Well, do all cart paths have to be paved? Can they be like little crushed rubber things or shells or something?
That wouldn't be good on your reel mowers. That would just tear your reels all to pieces if they hit a rock or anything like
So
that.
that would be okay, so you don't want the mowers to hit the golf cart paths.
Well, they'd stick into the tires, get onto the fairways. It would drag rocks everywhere.
And the tarp, I guess, is that like, can I come over there and sew it up for you? Or is,
We have patched them, some of them. We're over the lifespan of the ones we currently have.
you have a lot of them, though, right? Like for,
I don't know if you drove by in the
Yeah.
wintertime and seen the tarps over the greens. That's as a replacement of these, and that's protecting our biggest asset on the golf course, really. And so I wouldn't recommend cutting that one because the ones we have are in pretty bad shape. We are trying to come up with a solution. In the past, they've been stored on pallets and in the shop or in the old fairground building. But we struggle, mice get in them and eat holes in them constantly, so we're trying to figure out containers or something to put those in to kind of protect them a little bit more.
okay, thanks a lot, this helps. Bunkers and,
I would think number 41, if we could move that to 27, 28, the range ball dispenser, since you have other, I mean, I'd rather focus on
the maintenance,
maintenance things that are needed.
that might help us.
So that's 15,000. I mean,
What's a
if there's-
range ball dispenser?
We used to have one years ago. When people come to the driving range, you and get a basket of balls. Once they pay, right now, we use a big tub, and we scoop balls out of it, and that's how they carry them to the driving range. The range ball machine would dispense the balls into the basket. It would give us more room for merchandise inside the pro shop. It does take up a lot of room. It does make a lot of noise when we have renters in some of the other rooms. And that's why we were looking at doing something different. Plus, it would help speed up the lines for customers. Because the new ones now, you just take your debit card, scan it, put your basket underneath, and they can go to the driving range.
I just think you got a lot of the maintenance stuff that we need to do as opposed, I think that's more of I mean, I like it. I mean, I'd like a range ball dispenser, but I'm looking at it to be more of a recreational thing for it.
And
But, I mean, if we could move that out, that would be 15,000. I'd focus more on maintenance.
I'm fine with moving that out another year.
Oh, good, good, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
And Pam, wait.
I'm going to
And
ask,
I'd rather focus on like the clubhouse alarm cameras. I think that we need to keep that. I think that's.
I don't want to ruin your momentum, but could we get a 5-minute break at 7 o'clock, just buy a
Yeah.
break?
That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But can we move the range ball dispenser
Yeah,
out
we are
to
doing that.
27, 28?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Close enough to 7 o'clock to do that break for you.
Yeah, if that's okay,
Yeah,
if
let's-
everybody's okay, we'll just take a 5-minute
Yeah.
recess, is that fine?
Yes,
Yeah,
that'd be
that's good.
Great.
Hello, hello. Has Chazo, somebody been tracking the numbers that we've been changing? And what are we looking like now in terms of what was listed in the preliminary budget as the ad valorem tax contribution for next year?
So I've been trying to track along as we've been going, to just to level set what Faith put forth at the 65.5 cent tax rate had a $627,000 or so surplus. And so with the adjustments that have been made, one caveat, she had a little bit higher proposed debt service associated with the trash truck. So the addition of some capital projects, movement of some capital projects out, taking out the lobbyist, has about $125,000 net positive benefit to the bottom line compared to where we started the evening.
And that's at the 65?
Yes,
Which is just apples and apples kind of thing. That's why you did that, just
That's
to be
correct.
clear. So that, so that would make it 7 something? What's the, I can't wait.
based on your budget, it would be about $750,000
Okay.
surplus
So
where
if
we started the night. Yeah,
Is it 125,000, if a penny is roughly 90,000, it's like another cent and a half, if I'm doing my math right, that you could consider going down. And we'll put all of this in and clean that up to make sure that that's accurate before I, but that would be the intent, is that we would go down on another additional cent and a half, like 4.5 cent reduction.
And what would that make the need from the ad valorem, what would that make that number from the ad valorem taxes, the revenue number look like now? Instead of 5,511,964?
so if we were to go down 4.5 cents as an example to 61, total ad valorem, now this number includes the vehicles as well, would be about 5.5 million compared to about 5.9 if you add the ad valorem plus the vehicles at the 65.5 cent rate. So about $400,000 for 4.5 cents.
Okay, because our preliminary budget has a number of 5.511964 in it.
Yeah, well, you have to include,
There's
that's
this,
because I break it out. You have to look at that, his number also includes the motor vehicle.
yeah, there should be a second about $400,000 number, a couple
Yeah.
rows below it, if memory serves.
Yep. Motor vehicle, tax and tags is what it's called. And that's 402,000, which he has that factored in, with the ad valorem tax, because it is based off of the tax rate. It flows with our ACFR as well.
I'm just looking at the sheet that's got the 5.511964. So 4.5 cents, did you say 6 cents before, Matthew? What did you say?
So I said 3, and so with the changes that have been made this evening, would bring it down, instead of 3, it'd be 4.5 cents total.
And what would that make the amount, again, the general fund amount would be, property tax amount would be 5.5 million versus, what did we collect last year?
Well, it'll be,
What are we
it'll
on
be
track to?
vastly different because the tax valuations have changed.
Well, I mean, the money's still the money. There's a revenue amount that we've collected or that we're collecting this year in the budget. It's like $4.2 million.
Yep, 4.26.
Yeah, based on your 26 budget, you're estimating 4.26 million.
Including vehicles. That includes the vehicle
Yes,
tax.
vehicles in there.
$35, is that what you're?
No, it's the, when you get your
Oh,
bill and it tells you, your, the tax you pay, that's that, the tax and tax, yes. The fee is different, that's the motor vehicle fee, and that's estimated at 111, based off of and I took that, based off of the report I got from the DMV or the state that said this is how many cars that are registered in Jamestown, and I times that by 30, that's how I got that.
So I'm confused now. You said something about, I thought you said that you had the tax and tag line item 3102 mixed in with the 3100?
Yes, because it's all tax.
But aren't you talking now about the motor vehicle fee? That's a separate fee?
That's different, that's in a different line. He had I was explaining the difference,
Okay.
yes, because he thought, it was a 30. I was explaining that to him.
I got an IEP over here.
You're good. No, you're good. It's a lot. You're fine.
35,000, Scott, on the replaced green roller.
Yes. That will take it from a two-man job to a one-man job. Currently, we have two older rollers that are probably about 20 years old. And in fact, we just had one of them, we had to send off and get some pieces welded because it continues to break. And this would also, like I said, turn it into a one-man job versus a two-man job. This one's a little bit larger.
Is that pulled behind a tractor or cart or something, or do they physically roll it?
It's actually a self-contained unit that you load up onto a trailer and pulled with one of our heavy-duty utility vehicles. Drive it to the green, unload it, and then you roll the green with it, and then load it back up and go to the next one.
It's like a ride-on piece of equipment.
Yes. Sorry.
Dumpster enclosure, 20,000.
That's needed at the pro shop. Right
Oh.
now, we have it in the, in which we still have enough handicap spots because the dumpster used to be down at the bottom of the parking lot, but everybody and their brother was coming up there and bringing their household trash and couches and throwing in there. So we tried locking it, and that didn't work. Then the dumpster company would lose the lock. So we moved it up to the top of the hill behind the clubhouse, put it in one of the handicap spots, added 2 more handicap spots in return. And then, like I say, it's just an eyesore right there behind the clubhouse, and we've talked about it for years, adding that.
So, $20,000, is there any way that we could, or have you looked at companies that were able to do it and close it for us for less than that, than $20,000?
It would depend on the
Where's that?
price of the concrete, because you're gonna have to do a large concrete pad, so the asphalt doesn't bust up, so it'll have to be a thick concrete pad.
But what about this shelter you made with the trees? Could you do something like that with this?
There's not a foundation in the shelter,
Yeah.
and then that's the bigger part of this.
Yeah, the bigger,
foundation.
probably half of this would probably be in concrete.
Oh, okay.
And the big
Never mind, yeah.
holes, there's not a lot of wood in it. We could definitely try to source some of that wood in the panels. And this, trying to think, you'd have 4 big posters in the 2 gates, which would be bulkier cost in the concrete. We would look to maybe try to do some of this in-house, but the concrete we can't, but some of the other stuff we could.
It's also an ordinance requirement for us, that with new construction, commercial stuff, we do require them to have enclosures for their dumpsters. So I'd like to set the tone of what we're expecting. Try to follow our own rules.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, didn't know if it was, if it, $20,000 though, I'll come help. No.
I know, that's what I'm, sure is.
Look,
No,
hey,
that
we'll
makes
take bids.
I just wanted to know.
It's a lot more
It's
to
like-
it
it's like than, right.
Rebecca will let us do the bidding if you got the right credentials.
That's be a lowest responsible bidder, and I don't know about her concrete pouring.
Oh, no, I'm not going there, Councilmember Gibson.
So again, I'm sort of at the bottom line here. So with what we currently have sort of worked through here, if I'm a property tax payer in Jamestown, which I am, when I get my bill in next fiscal year, what percent increase will I expect to be paying for Jamestown property taxes next year versus the current year?
I think that it depends, it's a case-specific thing. I can't answer that because everybody's house is valued.
Well, I'm just saying on average. I mean, right now, I mean, when I'm working the numbers, it's still coming out to like a 12% property tax increase for everybody. It's not, I mean, it's, again, it's just, the rate may be going lower for Jamestown, but the amount of money that we're collecting overall and what people will be paying will be more. So I don't want to mislead
That-
people
that
and
is
say
correct. That's
the
how
rate's
the-
going to come down, so you should expect that your tax bill will come down, because we're still at a point that it's going to go up.
I don't think it's a realistic expectation for us to be, as we've proven earlier, to be at revenue neutral. It could be a zero, like, to use your math, to have a $3,000 bill last year and a $3,000 bill this year is not realistic, because the county has increased the property valuation on us.
So do we know what the percent increase is? Do you know that, Chazo?
So a 61-cent tax rate is about 28% above revenue neutral. So broad assumption, but on average, the average homeowner in the town would expect a 28% increase in their bill. To Matt's point, case-by-case basis, but if you take an average across the town, that's a rough number there.
Thank you, because I'm glad somebody else can do that math.
You know, another way to look at it, we're pretty average in the way our appeal worked out. It was just under 200,000 before the revaluation, and after, it's now at about 325. And our tax bill, if the rate does not increase, and if the rate were to stay the same for Guilford and Jamestown, our tax bill would be about 4,100 compared to 2,560 for the year. So that's like 130 or 40 a month. It's enough to make you go, the first time you see it. And that's with no increase at all. So that's kind of where it might help.
Because it's the tax valuation that's causing the,
Yeah, it's the valuation, because it went up
Problem.
70%.
And I'll go back to my
so if we,
previous.
okay, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. So if we, I had a thought, it sounded really good in, about trying to explain that, so that if we didn't do what we're doing now, that tax bill would be a whole lot higher. No matter what we do, it's going to go up almost
It's going to be
no matter what we
higher
do.
anyway, yeah.
So I get what you're trying to get to is that because the valuation is going up so high, no matter what we do, we're probably not going to bring the bill down. We're just keeping it from going up even higher.
Correct.
That's kind of what you were saying
Oh, and
in your math.
It's my understanding too that you'll pay whatever, and then you have to look at the Guilford County side. too.
Right,
Guilford
right.
County taxes, and whatever they set their rate at will affect your bill as well.
That's correct.
So what would happen with a model that in lieu of the full $5.51 million, what if that number was 4.4 or $4.5 million, and using $1 million in appropriated fund balance to cover a gap?
Using
What-
$1 million
what would that do to that
of
percentage?
fund balance
Yeah,
would wipe out your fund balance, and you would be you would be in violation of your policy. You would need to find a way to recoup that.
we've got
which
$6
means-
million in undesignated fund balance now. How's it going to wipe it out?
Taking $1 million out of fund balance?
Yeah, so you would, if that trend continued year over year, you would quickly fall below your policy level, and that's a function of effectively appropriating fund balance for ongoing expenditures. To Matt's point earlier, you could cut out $850,000 of capital, maybe some other areas like we talked about this evening to find some savings, but that basically says from now forward, no capital at all, and you're even dipping into fund balance some just to cover operations, which is a very slippery slope.
So, again, I'm trying to reconcile in my mind, we use, in our current budget, we had a fund balance appropriation of $1.2 million. In this one, we have none. If you look at sort of the ongoing fund balance increase over the past 2 years, 3 years as we've been doing this, again, it's continued to increase. And again, I'm all for making sure that we're following our policy, and being good stewards of what we're thinking about both today and going forward. But I'm awfully focused on the taxpayers in this community and what that, how do we get to a better place than just, a 28% property tax increase for everybody who lives here going forward. And again, the 1 point, we appropriated 1.2 million last year. There's two factors again that I've asked for information on. One is, and again, Matthew probably is right, it probably takes some work to do it, is to get some assessment of, when sort of where we're trending and tracking, we close out the fiscal year, what's going to flow into the fund balance to increase it even more is one thing. And then the second thing is, what kind of ongoing increase have we seen in terms of new property tax base revenue over time? So there's a couple of variables that play into all this, and I just, again, I'm going to continue to be dogmatic on finding ways to help drive the increase if we have to do that with town residents down as low as we can and still being fiscally responsible. And I know there's maybe differences of opinion about what that means, but there's information and numbers that we're working with here that aren't necessarily complete and won't be complete until the end of this fiscal year. So that's just sort of where I'm at with it.
If we were able to find a way, if we did a 5 cent as an even, which I guess, or 5.5 cents, I'm just trying to see, like an even 60 cents. What does that yield for fund balance, to put back into fund balance? Only $134,000.
Close to breaking.
Yeah, so again, my responsibility is to advise you that you have some large capital projects on the horizon and that you should be putting, with $1 million payment coming out in year one approximately, $134,000 in fund balance is not going to make that up. What I'm trying to do is to prevent you from getting into a situation where you have to go up on the tax rate exponentially to balance the budget in future years by taking the short-term win of going down. Does that make sense?
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, again, thoughtful that 28% feels like an
Speaking of
awfully
this
big
year's
increase.
budget and the appropriated fund balance, some of the things that the prior council used was the Oakdale sidewalk. They wanted to do the phase one, wanted to pay for that out of town funds instead of going through the NCDOT. That's part of it. The fact that the sidewalk that we're currently doing, this project up here, the quotes came in higher, $260,000. So that right there is $560,000 of it. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. So that's some of that's factoring in. However, if, since the Oakdale sidewalk project's not going to get done this year, that rolls back into fund balance, but then we'll reappropriate it for next year. There's a lot of moving parts to fund balance. reappropriating every year projects that didn't get completed. Let's say we did start the Oakdale sidewalk Phase 1 between now and June 30, and we spent $150,000 of that. Well, then we would only reappropriate $150,000 next year to finish it off. So there's a lot of factoring variables there, but, that's half of the appropriation just off the top of my head, that we've done this year. I mean, I would have to go back and look to see what were some other things we did, but those are the two biggest ones I can think of quickly.
I think what Jim is saying is it's difficult for us to say that we've lowered your taxes, but yet they're still going up by 28%. I guess maybe if we reframe that and say they were going to go up 43%, I'm just making up numbers here, and we've cut it to where it's only going to go up 28% because of the valuation. Is that a fair statement? Again, I don't know what the actual numbers are.
The methodology sounds sound to me.
Is that what?
It's not going up as much as it would have. If you
Yeah, I
stay,
think
if you
we're
stay
gonna,
at,
it's not possible to make it not go up, because if it's going up 45%, I don't think there's any way we can, is that fair, and say, okay, if your house is going up 45%, we're gonna get it to where it's only gonna go up 28%. It still sounds bad, but it's, our framing it around is, we've cut it from going, based on what we've done, you cut it from going up 43% to down to 28%. Is that a,
whatever the numbers are.
whatever, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you, I'm not doing the math.
But I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, just my layman's looking at, is that?
And I can only answer this, like, if I were in your shoes, my response to citizens would be, we worked very hard to identify projects that we could maybe defer for another year, or that policy decisions that were made in the past that they don't agree with, that we've reduced our expenditures by, what, it's a couple $100,000 roughly, and I'm just doing rough math. And that has yielded a result of roughly 4.5 cents of reduction in your tax rate. You actually have the option to stay at 65.5 cents and put $700,000 back into fund balance, and there is probably an argument for doing that, because you have some large capital projects on the horizon. But I know that there is a desire to give back some relief to the citizens, and we support that. And I think you've all done a really good job of identifying some ways to do that tonight. We definitely support the 4.5 cent. I don't think we can get to a revenue neutral without having massive impacts to the way we do services to the town citizens. That's how I would answer it.
I think the question I'm going to have to ask and answer, and we'll have to answer collectively, will be, I understand things increase in cost, and they cost more today than they did yesterday. But when you look at something saying, from last year to this year, all of our costs have gone up 28%, I think that's going to be a difficult thing for people to understand, and that's sort of the bottom line that I look at with this is, how do we, again, we have gone through a discussion, deliberation here tonight about the different components of the budget and taxes and spending. That's all good, but the question will still remain, I know my household budget has gone up some, like everybody else's, but 28% in sort of, funding things that are at that level, it's going to be hard to explain. That's just sort of where I'm at. It's going to be hard to, and I, again, where we don't know what the county will do, if I had to forecast, they're probably, going through the same, well, they are going through the same kind of process that we are. But, if I had to forecast it, they're not going to come down to the revenue neutral rate either. So, we're going to be hit by 28% by what we would put on the table, and hit by whatever additional percent that the county would put on the table. I just don't think that's sustainable, but again, we can only control, and that's why I keep driving it, we can only control what Jamestown does. And again, you know, our team does a terrific job of pulling together the budget and providing us with what I think is a reflective set of needs that continue to drive the community forward with a very high level of service. I just have to wrap my mind around if we were to adopt this budget today with a 28% increase in the property taxes that people pay, would you say 11%, 13, 14% increase in water fees?
So it's 11.5% on water,
Yeah.
as a direct result of the capital projects that council has directed us to do.
Yeah, and I think the water component to me is easier to explain to folks about how it works and operates, and, you know, we really are into ownership and responsibilities with the water authority and with the sewer, and, you know, what we want to do with meters. That increase is easier to explain. It's just the 28% on the property tax fees or
It's
property
really
tax.
hard.
It's
I
gonna be,
mean,
it's
I
gonna be hard to
can't even
explain.
say it. It's just like,
So,
I think that's why we're going through, yeah, that makes perfect sense, Jim, and I guess that's why we're trying to find ways to, where can we cut and stuff and to make a difference. I don't know, I guess the next thing I would bring up along that is trying to find ways to cut that down a little bit is, the $30 we just talked about, you know, the $30 car tax per car. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, and that in terms of trying to make it palatable for people in the town, I don't know how do we get down 28%? How do we get down any further when we're started at 43, or whatever that number is, that fictitious number, percent increase. So based on what we've done, we've been able to get it down some. So if we're trying to find ways to make it palatable for citizens, can we just at least ask the question about the $30 per car? that we're-
Absolutely,
we're
yeah,
doing?
I'd be
And-
glad to answer that.
And I know it goes to paving roads, and they just pave the road in our neighborhood. I get that. But we're also talking about where is it we can possibly make some of these things that people see it and go, "Whew, that's a little bit of a relief." But there's a cost to that.
I think you've done a really good job
There's a
of
cost,
cutting or deferring different projects out. You
I
know,
mean, before you answer, is that something that I mean, they may not want to look at that, and I get it, but I'm trying to find, is there something else we can look at to get the 28 even
Yeah.
further? Because I know the mayor said, I don't even like to say it.
So, I mean, it's 111,000 roughly that we get from that motor vehicle fee, which is just over a penny equivalency. If you were to do that, you would have a serious negative impact on our ability to continue to pave streets. We would continue to fall behind, and at some point, you would have to either raise the tax rate or come up with a fee to help absorb that. We have done pavement study, how long ago is it? 4 years? Yeah, so 4 years, and we'll be looking to do another one after this fiscal year. We were fairly, not in a great position. We're behind on being able to pave streets. It's not going to get any better at all when other streets become public streets as part of, just like with Whittington Hall, it's all built at one time. The different streets in there have different levels of wear and tear, but the age of the road, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, the age of the road has a lot to do with how that paving schedule comes to be. I can only, with the money that we're getting now, that we're allocating for our pavement now, we're getting a mile or less of pavement. We have roughly, right now, about 16 and a half miles of pavement. It would take us 16 years at our current, spending rate to get around to paving roads in town.
So how
And
did
it's
we-
only going to get worse.
Right, and how do we pay for paving of the roads before this tax came into being?
The only thing that we get is POW bill funding. And it's a calculation that's done with gas tax and population and a couple things from the state that comes down to us. We get around 100,000.
It
120.
fluctuates between 130 and 127 and 130.
Okay.
This year we only got 127, prior year we got 130. So
Power
I-
bill has
I mean-
also been one of those things that the state has been targeted almost very regularly,
But at the
not every year.
127, we were falling further and further and further
And
behind.
we would only pave every other year to make that 127 goal further, you know, so then we'd have a budget of 200 and,
Let's say that's 2 to 300 and
60,000,
2 to
you know,
300,000. At that rate, we're getting well less than a mile, and you can see that that 16 years becomes 30 years. And it's just not sustainable for us.
I will say with the motor vehicle fee, everybody pays that, so anyone who has a
Right.
car registered in Jamestown, whether they rent, what own, whatever, everybody is paying that. So,
I keep thinking about High Point, raising money by, I've told you this before, charging a showroom tax downtown and also a Main Street tax, because they have so many, you know, companies that come in from out of state temporarily. And I just keep wondering, is there something we've not yet tried to tax other, you know, like put a tax on the industry, or industrial district, or on, I don't know, some of the bigger businesses that maybe for every pipe that you got going into Deep River, there's a charge or something. I'm just being
Right, trying to find
creative.
some way to offset.
Because it feels like we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
stick with the residential tax and then the standard things that the factories get. Is there something, or a license fee, or something that we've not thought about?
The answer to that would be no. We cannot charge businesses different tax rates just because they're businesses. They are part of the, you know, the revaluation is considered differently for commercial and residential. I cannot tax somebody for stormwater pipes into whatever, stormwater systems. And if the downtown businesses wanted to self-tax themselves to fund like a Main Street corridor study or something like that to support them, they could certainly do that, but I don't think that that would be wildly popular.
Yeah, the challenge is we don't have the, like, High Point's got, there's a whole lot of those
Well,
things
and
down there, yeah.
Yeah, you can do it by district, I know that,
Yeah.
but I don't know how those rules
Yeah.
work. And that's what I'm saying, and not our Main Street businesses, not the smaller, because I'm talking about
Yeah.
the ones that take up a lot of space and use a lot of resources, and trucks are a lot of wear and tear on our streets that come in and out of these places.
It's a good question to ask.
So do the vehicles in like these different industrial areas pay the town's tax fee, or I assume they might be registered in other states or places? Do we know, when we're talking about, I'm going back to what Jim was saying about the motor vehicle fee, do we have a breakdown of, is that all just strictly automobiles, or is that sort of, you know, so I'm asking with these industrial sites, you know, if they're also paying that fee too? I guess they would be if their
If-
cars or trucks
As
are
far as
registered.
license, or they call it garaged, if it's garaged in a Jamestown address, then they are subject to the fee.
And so now that the R. Horton site is kicked off, because I wasn't around when it all happened, any ideas about how many additional vehicles might be generated by that development?
I don't know, I have no idea. You know, it stands to reason, if you want to do some quick math, if it's 1,000 homes, or, you know, 1,300 homes times 2, if there are 2 on average, you know, you can come up with, what, 3,600 additional cars times 30?
Times 30.
Yeah, just, if you want to, you know, just, and that's not going to be, that's going to be over time, that won't be, that's at full build out, and that type of stuff.
7 years or something?
Probably.
Right, 5 to 7 years. You know, and that's just a very rough math.
Yeah.
I
So-
wouldn't want to bank on it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jim's general thought process, and again, it has to do with the collective of how we communicate a message about how we've reduced, if we have to keep, you know, a 28% increase for property taxpayers. I mean, I like the idea. I don't know what, I would suggest other than, maybe taking it down a third to take it to $20 a vehicle versus $30 a vehicle. And just sort of anticipating with the growth in new vehicles that will be part of the D.R. Horton complex, it will make up and/or exceed that over time because I forget what my little math thing said here.
How many do you have in town?
So the current number of vehicles is like 3,700, give or take. So if we're adding, another, 2,000, what was the number you came up with? 2,600, 3,000, so well,
600 over time.
it stands to reason over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, we'll probably double the number, so. But I think that would be a reasonable, good faith kind of effort that we could make, because I know I've heard about that tax too.
We're just kind of spitballing ideas about.
I appreciate the fact that everybody wants to go down on fees, because that makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to be completely honest with you from a manager standpoint. It's very minuscule in the scheme of things to go down $10 per year per car. It doesn't perpetuate us being able to continue to maintain our assets like we need to. It puts us in a precarious position going forward. And I just don't think that, this is my personal opinion, that it makes a significant dent in our overall budget.
I just
Well,
think
it's
from our,
taxing- It's very taxing on the residents.
I understand, I mean, we all
But, yeah, I
pay
mean, I-
taxes.
And on us, I don't want to pay it. I mean, it's
I don't-
horrible. It's-
Yeah, I mean, when we think about everything that's going on, and we don't have a lot of control over that stuff, we understand that, but it's definitely a concern, and, I'm concerned about our residents, and I always wanted to save them money. I always wanted to be fair to them and think about, the taxes or whatever. This is taxing. I mean, and I think it's a lot.
Okay, the League
I
of
mean-
Municipalities offers all these great services. There must be something where they can have somebody come in and look at how we do everything and make recommendations on, you could save money here or do something just to operate more efficiently. I know I've been in companies where when you get in, we're bought out by someone new, we bring in a business consultant to kind of take a look at everything. Is that doable?
Yeah, can I make the suggestion that, this is not a motion, by the way. People all flustered over that.
second is suggestion.
All in favor?
Okay, I'll give you, all we're really trying to do is figure out where can we cut and make adjustments to get it down a little bit, okay? And so, this car tax, again, I understand what you're saying about that, so I'm not gonna argue that, I get it, because we're just gonna keep farther and farther behind.
fee.
So, in the fee, sorry, fee. Corrected every turn, don't
It's okay,
No.
there's just two different things. I just want to make sure that everybody
Okay,
understands.
so just
Another
like
motion,
we
Mr.
suggested that I'll do that. We have a position created in the town as the communications, or whatever we call it, public relations, okay? And so that's not in here, which is, okay. But you had to do some creative thinking in order to figure out how do we still serve that, but do it differently with different people in the town. Okay, that's what you did with that, correct? Okay.
And I need to pass this out.
Okay, so, but this is, it's unrelated to that. It's about the thought process behind it, okay? Is there a way, because $111,000 is not a tremendous amount in this huge budget.
Correct.
Is there a way to figure out that we can, this may not work. Is there a way that we can figure out, we can still find the way to make other cuts in the budget that we make up for the $111,000, that we can do away with that tax? Because I think that's what we're trying to get at. Now, it may not work because you're still having to pay
So
Paul,
that's a
You
that's
just
a
have to
great idea,
supplant it with
but it becomes a shell game.
Yeah, it
you know,
does, it does.
Because then, just going back to my same
But
example
what I'm saying is
with garbage.
somewhere that you're cutting, not that you're moving it around, but you're cutting.
basically, if we cut that, we just need to reduce the paving by 111,000.
And that's the only way, you see what I'm
Well,
trying to
but
get
that's
at?
because
That's not.
that fee pays for paving, and so I specifically put that revenue
Yeah,
toward
'cause I guess you can't really
paving.
move it from, if we cut this, that necessarily can't go into that. But what I'm trying to figure out is a way that we can,
Yeah.
how do we reduce by another 111,000 that we can make up for that we still have to get
Right.
to do the paving?
Okay,
And that's all I'm
I
trying
got
to
you.
do. So people that are smarter than me can maybe figure that out.
But I think, and we need to be careful how we do that because, you know, taking $111,000 out of recreation, for example,
Right,
and putting it towards paving doesn't help recreation,
right.
and paving is a different department. And,
Correct.
yeah, all that kind of
I
good
get-
stuff,
yeah.
so.
We're just trying to figure out how do we,
At the end of the
is there
day,
any way to do that, and we still get to do that, but
At the end
cut
of-
it from somewhere else is all I'm getting.
I think my statement here is, at the end of the day, the bottom line's still the same. You know, making up $111,000 somewhere else and taking it away from this is still a net zero. You haven't changed anything other than
Other
the
than people
perception,
paying,
the
that-
perception that they're not paying for something that they're actually still paying for.
Right. But that might be easier to explain than the other. You know, see what I'm getting at? That's I mean, I don't understand a lot of the stuff that we're even here talking about tonight. And so the public, if you say, we have cut the car tax. Now, they're still paying for it in another way, but it doesn't feel like it because that tax, or the
And that's-
fees, gosh, the fee's gone away.
And that's how the garbage collection works, right? It takes roughly $37 per household per month. We're charging you $15 per household per month, and your tax rate is subsidizing the rest of it. And that's where it generally falls, is your tax rate. So,
Well, I
I don't
withdraw
wanna
my suggestion,
suggest
motion,
it
or whatever
going
we
up.
called it, unless somebody's got a better idea on it. That's- But
yeah, we've done a great job tonight in coming down 4.5 cents. I think that's incredible. And still being able to put a small amount back into fund balance. And I think that's very important for you long-term as a community. I'm not sure I know at this point what more success would look like.
I do have one more question I meant to ask you, if it's all right. So back on the first page of the summary of the budget, I know under, maybe this was already discussed, the capital outlay of 637, I can see where that came out of the items above it that were, they came in under, I think, what they were originally estimated to be at the, let's see, what was that? Buildings and grounds, street, recreation, golf course. And that added up to 637,500, so it looks like then you added it back in, correct? Is that how that works? Because it wasn't,
I'm not sure I follow your question.
okay, yeah,
Hey,
so on the
On the
first,
summary, budget summary?
yeah, on the budget ordinance from last year. So these 5 things were originally overestimated, the expenditures, and the amount that they were overestimated was 637.5. And so then that came in down here as
The
capital out.
budget ordinance is done by department, so it would include
The capital.
capital. The summary breaks out capital and just shows you that line. Because that's more of like a little more detailed. Because we budget by department, we do audit by department, the ordinance is by department. So if recreation, streets, whatever, had capital projects, that would be included in that
The
department
department's
number.
budget.
And overall,
So it's not like it didn't get spent and, oh, there's extra 637.
no, that's right.
It went to capital within these different,
Yes.
and you have to count it as a capital.
And I don't have the budget ordinance from last year right here in front of me, but
Here,
the general fund total matches the budget ordinance. But this is a little more detailed because it shows you, the capital outlay. It shows you transfers through capital reserve account. So it shows, it breaks that out in more detail.
More detail.
As to where the budget ordinance is by department. Then that would include any department's
Yeah,
capital outlay
I was
funded.
just hoping that maybe
Oh,
I
I
could
got you.
find you $637,000 there,
I understand.
but
though.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Karen, are we expecting any increase in how much we have to contribute to retirement?
Retirement's going up 0.75% this year.
Okay. So
And
what does that put us at?
Let me- Our retirement for this, what we're proposing or what we're estimating for our retirement for this year is 497,000
Okay, so,
total. So
but what did, so,
it looks like it's about a $64,000 increase from last year to this year.
but what, I mean, what's the rate, I guess? Because we were paying we had to contribute, what, 13 point something percent?
We were at 14.38 last year.
Okay.
This year, we're at 15.13.
15.13. I know we don't have any choice about this, I was just here. 14.38 before? Okay. Do we have, it looks like you may have numbers there. Are they in here that I didn't see about, raw numbers? I see it's like broken down by departments, but about our total increase in salaries, wages, longevity pay?
I'm sorry, I don't have that, I just have benefits with me.
Okay, okay.
So what's the increase in our healthcare costs next year?
We're looking at about a 20% increase this year in healthcare.
Who's the provider for the healthcare plan here?
We have Blue Cross Blue Shield with our healthcare. And that goes across to the employees as well. If the employees have child coverage, they're paying $335 a month. If they have family coverage, and this is health, vision, and dental this year, they're currently paying over $1,200 a month for those coverages. And we're looking at that to go up as well. So next year, we're looking at family coverage, almost $1,500.
Oh, my God.
And what's the town's percent contribution to that? You pick up like,
We pay for the employee only. That's just the dependent coverage dollar amounts.
right, so what, with employee only, how much is it? 100% pay?
100% for the employees.
Okay.
We have Blue Cross Blue Shield, our dental's with MetLife, and our vision is with Community Eye Care. And in the past, the company that we've worked with, they've not been able to touch the rates that we've been given. Everybody going through the listserv right now, their insurance is going up 20 to 25, 30%.
So if you're paying per person, I know it's based on the age, just generally, what is the range of the cost per person?
It's not by age, it's just employee coverage. About $15,000 per employee per year. And the other amounts that I mentioned are just what they pay for dependent coverage.
How many employees do we currently have on the longevity pay system?
Budgeted for 40, we currently have 38 full-time.
On the longevity?
What is
Are they
that?
subject, what is that program? Are they subject, do they receive it now?
The longevity is percentage based, and I don't remember exactly the age ranges, or the longevity ranges and the percentages. First year you get $50, and then it goes up based on length of service to, I think, 4%,
Like 5 or 10 year increments,
5 or 10 years.
something like that.
So retirement is like, is that a state thing?
That's the state retirement system.
And then there's 401K somewhere. So what is that? How does 401K work?
The town contributes 5% of the employee's regular salary. That is not any kind of overtime pay or anything like that, it's just their regular salary.
So
And it's not matched. So you.
There's no match.
The employee can contribute or not.
Or
The town just contributes 5%.
like from day one, a flat 5%.
And that's consistent. I did kind of a rough survey of other municipalities in the area, and we're consistent with most of them.
So does an employee have 401K and a state retirement?
State retirement is mandatory. The town also contributes to the 401K, that's optional. if the employee wants to.
What's the town's contribution to that? Is it like 14%?
5%. For the retirement, it's going up to 15.13.
So the employee puts in 6 and the town puts in 15.13 required.
That I think is getting ready to level out
Yeah,
again.
they're talking about that at the, with the new state treasurer. Yes, trying to find ways to make that level instead of, because the last few years it's just increased.
keeps going up and up, yeah.
And that's local and state employees.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, so if we're looking at the proposed, which would essentially be a 6% increase in salaries and wages, correct?
We were proposing a 3% COLA and up to 3% merit, depending on employee performance.
Yep, okay. But that, then all these other things really rise too. Like, because if you go up 6% in your salary, then now you're also up more in your 401K and et cetera, longevity pay and all that. Okay. I'm just going to be very honest that I'm going to have a really hard time justifying a salary increase that's above private sector salary increases when we're asking the citizens to absorb so much of this revaluation expense. So I'm going to put that out there, and I got to think that over.
So I'm going back to Jim Gibson's item a while ago, the motor vehicle fee, the fee. I do think, again, I'm still noodling it around in my head on the dynamics of, you know, the upcoming increase in the number of vehicles. I understand all this stuff about, you know, it's not a lot of money, and it supplements another small pot and sort of fixed pot of money we get with Powell bill. But I'm still looking for some level of relief, and even though it's not a lot of money, I mean, my thought would be, again, do some kind of reduction in the fee. I don't know what the number is, if it's $10, $15, you know, because we're going to recover that or recapture back up to that number in the next 3 to 5 years with increased vehicles. But I get the whole dynamic of the resurfacing program and what that means. So, I mean, I'm prepared to make a suggestion if my colleagues want to entertain it. I would suggest that we cut the rate in half for the next fiscal year.
Of the rate of what?
The fee in half for the next,
the fee.
so take it from $30 to $15. And that would give us, again, some additional, I think, good faith sort of information to share with the community about what sort of continues to trend on this 28% increase in the overall property tax bill for next year, even though I don't know that I'm fully resolved on that yet either, so.
So just so I can think this through before I just make
Yeah.
my opinion about it in my head. So are you saying you're okay with it going down by half to $15?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But then meaning that we wouldn't be able to go down the full 4.5 cents in taxes to
No,
make up
they're
that?
they're two separate things. They're not really, they
So
are
you
not.
so you don't want to make
So-
up the revenue that would be lost? You're not looking to make that up?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not, I'm looking at making up the revenue over time through sort of a continuation of new residents that will be part of the D.R. Horton development and other growth and development in the community where more vehicles will be stationed in Jamestown going forward.
Do you actually, and you think that's really doable?
Huh?
You think that's doable? with
It
the
is, I mean, it's
revenue?
dynamically happening now when we talk about new people that are moving into the D.R. Horton community, and, you know, those vehicles being registered to Jamestown and Guilford County. So that's what I would put on the table. I'm just looking for ways to, again, keep Jamestown affordable from that perspective. And it's something that we control. It's not, it's a Jamestown fee. I clearly understand what it's for in terms of our street resurfacing efforts. And again, so that's my proposal.
I would drop that revenue to 55,575. Okay.
Yeah, with the current number of vehicles that are out there. But it's growing, so.
In the general fund, under the council's governing board, 4990, other contracted services, does include training for council or retreat type stuff up to $25,000. Is there any interest in continuing to have that in the budget? It's just part of that number. I was just looking at some of the other things that were in there. That would be similar to having the retreat, like Rebecca Jackson from True North was the name of her company. It came-
What's the line item number?
What's the
49.
line number?
It's part of that other contracted services. I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. It's in there if you feel like something that, I'm trying to find other things to
yep.
help you out.
So you've got 25,000 in there for extra training?
For like board retreat type training, it's general, under that umbrella of training, that's not a specific topic or anything.
Is 25,000 the number that was in there this year?
That's what we had gotten a quote for if we wanted to do another board retreat. Sorry, something flying around.
That's fine.
Does that include costs of like city vision
Yeah,
and
those kinds of things.
state?
Town and
State-
state, town
town
and
and state
state
dinners.
dinners and that kind of thing, those.
No, that would be under is it Department of Supplies? What is like the town and state
There's also
dinner?
conference.
It's not a
fees.
contracted service.
Some of it would be,
Oh,
if
okay.
you go to the town
Yeah,
and
yeah, that
state
makes sense,
dinner,
sorry.
some of that would be like conference and fees.
Conference and fees.
Conference and fees.
Yes.
And there's a little
Yeah,
travel.
okay, yeah, that makes sense, sorry, it's
I think
getting-
that would
getting
work.
Deep into the hours here for me, so.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Matthew.
Yeah, I think
So
I'd.
we wanna take that
do
out?
Remove, is it a general consensus? Oh, what else, Mr. Gibson?
How much is it? What, where?
25,000.
25,000?
It just takes away completely the other contracted, but it still allows conference fees and,
I mean, it's not taking out everything.
No, it's not taking out of conference fees. It would reduce the other contracted services.
Yeah, I'm okay as long as
Just
we do
reduce.
conference fees and stuff like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
taken away from that.
Could, okay, I appreciate, because we're all trying to do the same thing, we're trying to brainstorm.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if he's talking about cutting the fee in half,
Yeah.
that would only leave us 55,000, which ultimately is going to cause us to fall a little bit further behind on that. Would it be possible to take, and I know we don't want to spend down the fund balance, don't want to start, okay, we'll just use that, but you're talking $55,000 of the fund balance to go towards the 55,000 that we lost by cutting the fee.
So in the current scheme of things, you're still getting a budget increase of a small amount because of the revaluation component, which, again, I would recommend trying to keep something going back into your fund balance to grow that. You've got real capital expenditures coming, big capital expenditures.
Right, I'm not talking about not
But-
putting the money into.
So you won't have to take anything out. Does that make sense? I mean, you won't have to take anything out of fund
There-
And
balance.
I'm just trying for us to brainstorm a way that
Yeah.
we're talking about,
Streets,
at this point, we're talking about $55,000 that,
there may be some.
that
That's
we're going back to the county to, or the residents to say, at the very least, we've cut your tax increase from 43 to 28. We are trying to either reduce or do away with the car tax fee. And it's really, I know it's not a huge thing, but it is a huge thing on the other side of.
Everything
we're out there, and
counts.
we're going back out there. And I'm not trying to cripple us or anything, I'm just saying, is there a
Sure,
way that we can
Faith
find
has-
that
Faith
amount?
has something that she
We-
wants to
we-
pull your attention.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, Fund Bill encompasses a lot of things, and one of the things that's in there is streets. And we do keep a little extra in the reserve for, you know, if we have things that come up
Street
that we need to
failures.
hurry up and pay. I mean, you could possibly take a little bit from that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the best idea, I'm just saying
But that would-
collectively.
No,
we can
that-
find
that-
a
that
way
would-
to figure out
So-
to get
It's
55.
So what-
ultimately the same thing as taking it out of fund balance.
And
It
correct-
would just
correct me
come
if
out
I'm
of
wrong.
Yeah, so-
restricted
Correct me if I'm wrong, I
streets.
think Mr. Westmoreland's point is that with your anticipated growth, you'll be able to supplement that, you know, over time, and that you're sort of gambling that
Yeah.
you won't need as much paving in next
So when
year.
people come in, they're
the next
bringing
cycle.
2 or 3 cars with them.
Right, I mean, it would be, if, at 1,000 homes, it's $60,000, but that's a long way away from 1,000 homes that you'd bring in. But those roads wouldn't need to be paved for a while, and again, I don't know that that's the best idea, but collectively,
I like it.
we can find a way to do that and still pave the roads by some,
There is a little reserve in the streets, if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Okay.
Am I-
if
Am I
that's what
right
you
that
would
your
like to
idea
do.
is that over time, you'll sort of.
Yeah, it's gonna
Right.
recover.
Yeah.
It's
You
Or
think
gonna,
over time
You
it's
can
going to
revisit
recoup
it at a
itself?
later
yeah,
date.
because we're adding new houses and residents every day that are bringing 2 or 3 cars with them, and,
You can reevaluate that on a cyclical.
yep.
That makes sense.
Like getting back.
Consensus to make it $15?
Yeah, I wrote that down, I think Chad.
but I want to make sure that we don't, I mean, that we have a way of not robbing him so we don't keep falling further behind.
So Faith has said that Faith has said that there is a POW bill reserve, is what I'm thinking she said.
There's a streets
Street.
reserve, and that is.
But there's money there to supplement this change that's not gonna impact the
And I
28%.
want to rely on their expertise as well to say, no, that's a stupid idea, or, well, we can make that work, and that's all we're trying to make it work.
I mean,
You know, I'm always going to advocate for having
Yep.
good finances, but
Right.
I think I understand Mr. Westmoreland's point is that it's willing to revisit that at a later date and kind of see what that looks like for the next couple of years or something,
Right.
see where that gets us. You can always revisit it and go back up if you find that you need to.
Right.
So we'll keep you apprised. We're getting ready to
Yeah.
do another pavement condition study in the following fiscal year. Is that right, Paul?
Yes.
It'll be in the following fiscal year, so you'll have more data at that point. So this time next year, when you're doing the budget, you'll have better data to make that decision.
And-
Is that fair?
And
Yeah.
I think you said full growth, we were looking at 2033?
Yeah, I think estimated schedule on the DR Horton build-out, we were thinking that'd be complete by 2033. So
2033.
depending on their build-out schedule, that could
9 years.
shift, or if there, you know, more homes being built on the front end and it takes a while to complete.
Definitely a Jose question.
7 years, yeah, that's about right.
We're going to hold you to it now.
It's up to DR Horton.
I just pulled like the library, the Y, and the historic Jamestown.
Thank you.
The library, this looks like the same thing they always get. The Y, okay, where is it? This one, I don't know how much the historic Jamestown was
It was
last year.
10,500 last year.
Yes, we've always done 10,500, but this year they have requested 20,000, which is a $9,500 increase. I did work that in the budget just because that was given to me.
Yeah.
I
see what you're.
My understanding is I think they're having some AC problems, air conditioning unit problems. So I think that was the reasoning behind them asking for an increase, but, you know, ultimately it is up to you guys.
So wait,
however you wanna fund
they're
it.
asking, we always gave 10.5, right?
Yes,
And they're
Historically, that's
asking
correct.
for,
they're asking for 20, which is a $9,500 increase.
what do you,
Look at you.
So, you know, you can direct
What do
me
we,
there.
what do we get from the historic society besides them having the Mendenhall? Like, I know for the Y, we get, you know, Jamestown residents get a discounted membership. And then, you know, the library, we know library services. So like, what do we get for our money from the historic society? Just that they keep maintaining the Mendenhall? Is that it?
Historic programming at the
Okay.
Denton Hall Home Place, that's right,
Okay.
yes.
So Sarah mentioned the Y. I mean, I think I'm fine with all these requests, but I did have some questions on the YMCA. So does that apply to all residents in Jamestown? Because I don't use the Y, I don't.
Yes, yeah, all residents and all Jamestown residents should get a
If you're a
discounted.
resident, you get a discount.
You get a discounted.
Do you have to be
membership.
a member to get the discount? So you have to buy a membership and then get
And
the
then
You could
discount?
probably get it through Silver Sneakers for free.
What are you saying?
Hey, you're speaking my language.
No, so you have to be a member of the Y to get the discount? So you got to pay to be a member?
Yes.
Correct.
How much does it cost to be a member of the Y?
Like 35, well, 100 first time, and then 35 a month, 45 a month, something like that. But like, my insurance pays for mine.
So you got to be a member of the Y, then you get the discount. There's no,
You get a
these aren't
discounted
just like-
membership.
Yeah.
It is a membership discount, yes,
Yeah.
correct,
It's like
yes.
Well, what about all these different programs? So they said like,
Oh,
You get a
so,
discount.
one of these, they've got like 4 Jamestown residents that use it.
Well, they have to give something in return, I think in that part of the deal with these kind of contributions. And so they've always also offered some little
Yeah.
classes, at a discount.
I think where I'm having a sticking point is, you have to be a member of the Y to get these Jamestown sponsored benefits,
True.
that's
which
correct.
means you got to pay in to get.
Yeah, I see what you're
You know,
saying.
That is
you
correct.
can't just walk in off the street and say, I want to do
The
aerobics
class.
over in Rim Miller
Yeah.
Park, and,
The Run Mill you can do, that's free for everyone.
well, yeah. Okay. Rim
Whether-
Miller's good.
whether you're a
Rim Miller's
Jamestown resident or
good.
not, you
Everybody
can-
show up, do some yoga. Rim Miller's
The
good.
Ren Miller yoga.
I was just looking for that on here, I was gonna say that, but thank you, yes, they do yoga in the park over there for free.
Are any of these other ones just generally open to people for free, or that's where you got to be a member to go jump in the pool and?
Not here, only one that's $10 a month is Marilyn over off of Hilltop, but that's.
But yeah, I don't think you
with
could
the
like go
county,
in,
That's not,
yeah, I don't think you could go into the Y as a non-member and get the 50% off on the water or fitness or whatever.
But I think they would be open to if there's something else you would rather do without having to join and wanted to suggest a different program or class. I got that impression,
Is this the same amount of money they requested last year?
yeah.
It is.
$10,550.
And
They've been at this level for quite a while.
they provide a good service. They are also really.
Well, my thing is generally, I would like to have more of this offering available to all citizens in Jamestown where you didn't have to pay to be, because again, this is one of those items, as small as it is, where, we're supporting, we're about to, provide them with funding again, that will somewhat be restricted just to those who are members of the Y, other than if you show up and do yoga in the park, which I may go do that. That sounds pretty cool.
It is, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's
When
really,
It's often blazing hot, but.
we.
But that's the whole point. It's just,
Yeah,
things that the entire community can benefit
I
from
think
that are
this is one of our
supported by.
greatest, I think this
their
is one
tax
of our
dollars,
greatest
one thing.
assets personally, and after meeting her for the first time, the director,
Marley.
yeah, I think she would love to hear what other ideas you would want to add, Jim, and not being a member, and I think she would probably do something like that,
Okay.
but that's just. me.
Consensus to leave the Y at the same level?
Yeah, that's fine.
And-
Any other questions on
Well,
those?
I want to go back to the Historic Society.
yeah, let's go back, yeah,
What
I'm
is
good with the
their,
Y, I want to go back to historic.
do you know, I mean, it's not our job to know, but do you know, like, what are their other funding sources?
I do not know off
I'm
the top
not
of my
sure.
head. I know they're doing a capital campaign to try to do
Okay.
some large projects out there. I know that they have memberships as well.
Oh, okay.
I think they try to go out with funding, is that right, Rebecca?
They what?
Okay.
But as far as I
Yeah,
know.
I don't have.
I just
pull
want to
them
make sure
up.
they're not totally reliant on just us for all their
I know.
funding.
Let's,
Okay.
and I know these as well.
But she can look and see if you have
Let's see.
more interest, sir. She can look and.
Oh,
see.
I just wanted to make sure they weren't totally relying on us for funding all of
No,
the
I don't-
things.
I don't-
And, oh, we need a
no.
new AC unit, so let's go tell Jamestown we need a new AC unit.
Just looking at their profit and loss, statement, their income is, admissions, donations, events, like the Christmas tour, Mary Brown, oh no, I didn't get nothing. Fiber Arts Day, Village Fair, After Dark Tour, those kind of things. And then, it looks like they've gotten some grants. They do memberships. They've got, the capital campaign, it looks like they're gonna try to get some revenue from. They've got a little bit of like interest income, that kind of thing. And then the store brings in a very small amount.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
And what is Fusion? That sounds interesting.
That's soccer,
Yeah, the little soccer.
youth soccer.
And they even pay to
Are we
use the-
keeping the, or do,
For Mendenhall, no, for me,
what would you like to do there?
we've given them, 10-5. I think 20 is just too much right now, considering that we're trying to cut costs in some places. I don't mind giving something, but certainly not that amount.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you want to give
You mean
the,
something as an additional, or just the 10?
No, I don't mind giving them a little bit more than the 10-5, just not 20.
Yeah,
Consensus is to stay at the current level of 10.5.
No, you're saying
No.
to go, you can go to like 15, for example.
Yeah, we could,
Oh.
if we come up with, if you want to give a little something extra.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Right, what I'm saying
Okay,
is,
okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, did I not say it right?
Getting late.
We could get, so yeah, I'm okay with giving them a little extra, but certainly not 20. If
Yeah, that's almost a
what-
50%
So we just have to come up
increase.
with a number. I don't know what y'all would like to come up with,
Yeah.
what's reasonable.
I think Jim suggested 15. I think that's a good number. 15,000.
15. Thank you for,
That's about half of what they're asking.
bringing that up?
That's a 50% increase plus.
Yeah.
thank you. Now, Fusion is new for us this year. For many, many years, the Jamestown Youth League sort of filled this slot. And Scott can tell you a little bit more about Fusion. That's his,
Yeah,
that's his ball
gig.
of wax.
That's his gig.
Fusion, we started working on, just a little background, our fields were way underutilized for years and years. I reached out to Fusion to try to get a little bit more play and wasn't successful. I ran into a gentleman at Costco who had a Fusion coat on. And I said, hey, man, I need to talk to you. And we had a conversation in the parking lot. 3 days later, they came and toured the complex, and they've been renting from us and have now, over the past 2 or 3 years, they've become our largest renter at the soccer complex. They are super easy to work with. If there is an issue, they take care of it real quick. They pay their bills. We don't have to pester them. So Fusion has been very good to work with. And we do, especially with filling the slots over at the elementary school now because they wanted those lights. And I know they're asking for $10,000. They'll spend well over $30,000 with us this year. If, more than likely, more than that. But I feel safe saying 30, but they'll, because I know they've spent 19,000 up to this point, and they're just now starting their soccer season. So Fusion has been a great organization to work with. They are a registered nonprofit as well.
I've never been involved in Fusion before, but what I do know just from having kids that are a little older than that age now, but still, I still am in social circles with kids that age. And people love NC Fusion, like a lot of kids do NC Fusion. I anticipate as Johnson Farm gets built out, their enrollment will grow exponentially and we'll probably bring in even more money because it's like, I know the Y does soccer, but that's more recreational. Fusion, I think, is recreational, but it's a little more competitive, so that's what a lot of parents are looking for. They think their kids are gonna be the next Messi, so.
They do have all levels, and this is for
Yeah.
recreational soccer. And like I said, they'll be bringing in camps. We actually just confirmed this week where we're gonna do a 4-year-old tournament out there and have like 12 fields, and that's gonna be so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually new that we don't even have on the books yet. We haven't even put it in the system yet, so, they just keep bringing more and more to the community. And I don't know if you've seen the stats when they do their big tournaments, they, and I think some of the information is on there, the hotels and just how much they bring into the community. Was it 40 million, I think, into the local economy?
We should build a hotel then, I think. We should build a hotel.
That's not emotional, right?
That's not emotional.
So are they actually asking for money or just advertising support?
I'm trying to see what their ask is here.
I mean, I thought there was.
10,000 in reimbursement. They were asking.
10,000 in
if-
reimbursement.
Yeah, and that would be the same way we do the YMCA, I'm correct?
That was my understanding. They would give Jamestown residents who play in the organization a discount.
Yep.
Yes.
They get a discount. They asked for us to be able to put signs up and things like that in there as a partner, which on the weekends when they're having their games, yes, they can put their signs up and do all that, but we don't necessarily allow them all the time.
I've also heard from, and this is a testament to everyone who works in the town, but Scott, particularly to you and your staff, is that when I do encounter folks now and again, and say I'm from Jamestown, and they'll be like, oh, my kid plays plays at the soccer fields out there. Those are so nice. We love those fields out there. So,
They do an amazing
Yeah.
job, Jeff and his staff.
so I think
all of 'em.
Fusion really wants to stay in business with Jamestown because I think it's a win-win. Yeah.
You know, the World Cup teams are required to do public games while they're here staying at their places. I'll give you his
We got a practice
information.
field.
Yeah.
Well, I support the little ones, and I support any type of organization that will give the kids extra exercise
yes.
and those kinds of things. So I'm good. I mean, I'm good. We've always had, whether it was JYL or not, I mean, you know, but we've always had something. So I you know, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm in support of it.
Yeah, I'm good with keeping the Fusion one as it is.
That's a consensus.
Thank you for doing the nonprofits. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion that we feel like we need to have tonight?
I mean, I'm still, I've got a lot to process. I think, you know,
Same.
I feel.
Yeah.
I'd like to just,
Good, I feel good about the progress,
yeah,
and the discussion tonight and how we've, come to some decision about things that are in the budget now. But I'm still, somewhat apprehensive about the 28% overall property tax increase that we still have on the books. And how we work that number down. And, you know, I know I'm gonna have a conversation with the chief about the fire department increase, you know.
I'd like to talk, sorry for cutting you off, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. I know you would like to, but I would like to as well. So I don't know if we could invite Chief Carson, to a briefing or anything. I don't know how we
Yeah, I'd
do
like
that
to also hear more
without.
about it too,
What do
yeah.
you
So,
think?
and he may be able to, he's still here, he may be able to speak to this, because he mentioned this in our sidebar conversation a while ago during the break. It sounds like that their budget request has already been developed, and whatever they're asking us in our budget, you know, beyond us just saying no, sort of like with the sheriff's contract, we're only gonna go to this level and here's what you're gonna get. It sounds like that's what their request is, somewhat fixed or rigid from that perspective. So you may wanna come up and just comment on that. I just, you know, I'm hopeful that there's flexibility to work with you and your team there to get a different outcome and a different number, but that's not, that's not the impression you gave me a while ago.
So the way our budget process works is, what I was alluding to a little earlier was, so our fire department operates as a 501c3, so we have a board of directors. I presented our budget request to our board. Our board went through their process and has approved our budget internally, which we have to do by the early April, so that our budgets are then turned over, our budget request is turned over to the county manager's office and the Guilford County Budget Office. So that's already been done. So our budget has been approved internally. And now what our budget does is it goes as a part of the county manager's recommended budget on May 21st. And so the county manager is looking through our budget request currently, as well as the other 18 rural fire districts in Guilford County. So the rural districts of Guilford County, or the fire departments in Guilford County, are a part of the Guilford County budget when it's recommended by the manager. So to say that it is fixed, the short answer to that is our budget has been approved by our fire department board of directors. To that point as well, as we operate under a 13-member board, and a portion of those members are town of Jamestown residents. So the town has representation on our board for the purpose of that same thing. The budget that's approved is approved by town of Jamestown residents as well, not just the Pine Cross Sedgefield Rural Fire District. So when I mentioned earlier that, we operate as one, that's one piece of how that happens. So I'll be glad to have those sessions, however you want to do those in short. If you want to meet outside in an appropriate way, that's I would welcome that, because I think it's important that y'all understand what is included in our budget. And we've done that in the past for council members to understand that, just as we do for our board members to understand that as well.
So, and I'll ask this question respectfully because I greatly appreciate the work that your department does along with the sheriff's department, and you're part of the fabric of this community. But if we were to elect to do something less than the 24%, how does that get responded to or reacted to in terms of what you provide to the town, if that would be the case?
So, like I guess where the response to that is, if you were not in approval of what our request, I think that's why it's important for you to understand what our request is, but you would just be not in favor of what our recommended rate is. It's a pass-through essentially for the town, because it's set as to whatever the county manager or the county commissioners of Guilford County set our tax rate to be as a part of the budget process, is then what our contract is set for in the town of Jamestown as well.
So have the county commissioners provided you with direction on the rate, or is that just coming through conversations with the manager?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Oh, just, so you're saying you're effectively saying that your rate is set by the county commissioners, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And so the question is, would the budget that you're proposing or the rate that you're proposing are both for us? Has that already been sort of communicated to you about where you can go with the rate by the county manager? Or is this just something that as you've gone through your numbers, this is where you've come to in terms of what you've been communicated about the revised rate structure?
So as a part of our budget process, I've met with, the fire departments meet with the Guilford County budget staff.
Yeah.
And as well as I've had a meeting with the Guilford County, the county manager. So
Okay.
I've had those meetings to explain our budget to him as he builds his recommended budget for the commissioners in May. He considers what our recommendation is, just as every other fire district in Guilford County. And essentially, at that point, makes a recommendation to the commissioners as to whether that is what we request our budget to be, or he would have conversation with us as to if he wants to have more understanding of that.
Okay. Well, I'll look forward to the meeting with you to learn more about what your request is and sort of withhold, I guess, a final perspective on that for now. Because because I don't necessarily know. I don't know where I'm going to be at relative to this item until we get together and understand what that 24% increase involves. I understand what happened last year, which was a 26% increase, and how it related to a contracting issue. But I'll look forward to that meeting.
Yeah, so we just need to decide, if you would just let me know too, if I think I heard that all council members would like to have that meeting. So whatever's
Yes.
appropriate, instead of having 5 separate meetings, however we can arrange that.
So I guess this would be an appropriate time to say that, like, Faith needs an appropriate amount of time to finalize her budget documents, to get them prepared for you for the 19th, the public hearing, and to put this out in the
Yeah.
public. So the week of May the 4th through the 8th, a number of council members will be in Raleigh for City Vision, the 5th through the 7th. That really leaves maybe the evening of, well, May the 11th, we have planning board, so it would be the 12th or maybe the 13th. And that's, the packet would be very late, and it would not be a budget that would be in the public's eye for a long period of time. But, these meetings are public, and certainly people can attend and see your deliberations. I might suggest, in lieu of the 28th meeting, that we move that up to maybe the 12th or the 13th, to be able to have, the 12th would be ideal, just because it gives us a little extra time for Faith to finalize all that math.
What are we moving?
She's giving me the.
So what happened? So are you moving a meeting? What'd you say?
Moving what to the 12th?
Say that
Or
again?
are you moving a meeting, or are we setting another?
In lieu of the 28th, which is late, so I think that it seems like we need to have this conversation. I would invite Chief Carson to come to that meeting. That way we can all be together, instead of trying to do multiple meetings at multiple times. Instead of the 28th, we move that up to the 12th, so that we can finalize the budget prior to the May 19th public hearing date that's been set. And that's a very tight timeframe for
Right.
Faith to finalize it, the packet for Katie to get out to the public. But again, it is a public deliberation, so if people want to know where you're coming up, we will make all the changes that you've suggested this
yeah.
evening, and we'll have that ready for that meeting, so that we
I think that
can
would be good to have another.
get a little
so
better idea.
Again, I'm not going to the League of Municipality thing, so the week of the 4th is out?
The rest of the council members will be out. Let's see, 3 of the council members will be in Raleigh for the 5th through the 7th, unless you want to have it on Friday night, and I'm not sure that you want to do that.
What about Monday, the 4th?
Or Monday, May the 4th.
Nope.
Parks and Recreation meeting, are we having a Parks and Recreation meeting on Monday, May the 4th?
I'm unavailable the 4th.
You're talking about having a group meeting.
Another meeting just like this. I know it's been so much fun, you want to come back.
So is this would be
I
in
think-
lieu of the, option,
Yes, we would move that up, because we need to get this finalized before the May 19th meeting, because we need this to be finalized and ready in the public packet for your consideration on the 19th.
Can I make a
It puts-
suggestion that
yeah.
because I saw her face and saw her kicking under the table?
She didn't kick
Could we
me.
just possibly, because the whole thing what's holding us up now is the conversation with Chief Carson, correct?
Unless there needs to be any other changes. It seems like we have consensus on everything else.
Yeah, I had one thing to ask about, but it's not a controversial thing or anything, but, is it possible for us just to find a way to talk to him as quickly as we possibly can? Because I'm going to the thing in Raleigh, but I'm actually only going 2 days and having to drive back and forth each day. So I can call him on the phone and say, hey, tell me what this is about, boom, I'm done. Or is it possible that we all do that? Because I don't want that to hold up this whole process, as that's what we're doing.
Is there any other changes that need to be made to the budget?
Well, I
Well-
think I need
I'd
to
like-
think about that.
Yeah, I need to think about it too. I just,
So if that's
gotta
the
come to
case,
some
you need to
reconciliation.
digest it. I need to
Digest.
have a meeting earlier than the 19th, well in advance of the 19th. Your packet's supposed to be done around a week before, which would be the 12th. You know, even if we had a meeting on the 12th and Faith worked night and day to get it done, you know, we could probably get it out by the end of the week, you know, the 15th. But-
So I'm totally in agree, I'm fine with the 12th, that's fine.
Okay.
If we want to continue the conversations, and I think it is helpful for Faith to have everything she needs. But, I mean, realistically, we could expect that there still would be changes because the public hearing comes, right? And
You
then we
could
can hear
always
more.
have changes,
Okay.
yes, but we have to present a balanced budget
Yeah.
to you with all of your information
Okay,
as
yeah.
best we can.
Okay,
I mean,
I think
clearly,
we-
this
I think-
process goes a lot smoother
Yeah.
if the council's in
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah,
Wait,
for
wait,
sure.
wait, you mentioned the employee stuff, the COLA stuff. Did you, we didn't finalize that.
no, I said,
Is
yeah.
that what you wanted to add?
I just said I want to think that over, because it doesn't align with the private sector or other municipalities. So I'm just, again, when we're asking the residents to bear such a burden with this retax evaluation, I think that's, you know, we have to consider that and the fairness to our residents if we're not in line, you know.
Right.
If we were in line, then it's a different story, but we're
Yeah.
not in line, so.
Sarah?
But to answer your question, just one second, you could, in the meantime, each of you could have a conversation with Chief Carson,
Okay.
and he could also come to the meeting if he so desires, but just FYI. Yep, sorry, Karen.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in for a minute. On the human resources listserv right now, they're doing a lot of polls with what municipalities are doing with
Yeah.
COLA and with merit. And COLA is generally settling in at around 3% right now.
Yeah.
Some are a little bit lower, some are a little bit higher. Excuse me.
You sound like me.
Merit is settling in anywhere from 0 to 3 to 0 to 6%.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, the Mercer, you know, who is an actuarial firm, they're saying in the private sector, it's looking at about 3.4% is the average in the private sector, so,
Yeah, that's just, what,
Yeah.
like I said, what's floating around
Yeah.
on the listserv right now.
yeah.
So I think again, I've got to think about some stuff. I think another meeting on the 12th would be good. Just,
My-
Just to make sure, that is 12th, May 12th? Okay, gotcha.
What time, in the evening, or you're?
And that was going to be my next question, but thank you very much.
Yes.
So just because it does get late
She
like
could-
this,
well-
if we could start earlier, and we could
I
start,
cannot, unfortunately.
but other than 5,
I can't do any earlier.
Hopefully, we're
tighten it up.
narrowing the focus.
Yeah, this helps me know now what I
Yeah.
want to review.
You know, and in the meantime, please call or come see me. And we can discuss whatever questions that
yeah.
you may have.
That would be
I
very
would
helpful.
prefer interacting with you instead of over email. Things get misconstrued sometimes. Or I might just explain it wrong or something, and or misunderstand what you're asking. So yes, please just set up a time with me, call me. I'm here most of the time, probably 99% of the time. You know, I do work sometimes, most days after 5, if you need to come after 5. So, you know, just
Sure.
let me know.
Sure, thank you.
And just throwing it out there, 13th maybe available? I got planning board on the 11th.
Well,
I wasn't sure if it had to be
the reason,
today.
I'm trying to be respectful
Yep,
of
that's
Faith,
fine.
because Faith and Katie have a lot of
I'm sure,
work to do. Once that discussion happens, put all that budget together.
I get
is
it.
a Huge lift, and then put the packet together.
I get it, yep. sounds good.
Katie, and I assume it gives you enough time to advertise? Okay.
I appreciate the information tonight. Yep.
I just have one
So
last thing, it's not a question.
what did we settle on the date and time of the
Well-
meeting?
The 12th at 5 PM,
5?
same location.
I can
And
make it at 5,
This is
I
not a
can't make
question,
it
it's
before
just a
5.
comment, but could we get, instead of like, from this thing tonight, we don't necessarily need a whole nother budget. If you give me that again, I'll just, tell me what we cut, what we
We'll
did,
do a
rates
summary
we did.
document.
It's just a short summary would be perfect.
Yes.
I appreciate it immensely.
Well, yeah, we will not, I'll not have Faith rework the entire
Yeah,
budget
yeah,
based
yeah,
on that.
just-
I will do a
I'll do
summary
a
document.
highlight
Yep.
on the summary.
And then the other thing,
Thank
this
you.
may not be for tonight, but it's just the part about the communications person or whatever, and that sort of thing. I'm not asking about that now, it's just, I think it's vitally important that we make sure that when you're talking to the staff about what it is that we want out of that, it's the promotion of these things, like promoting what we've done tonight in terms of packaging it around. We've made these cuts, and then we have all these soccer folks up there. How do we get them to downtown and stuff? So that's just the thing that, yeah, and so I don't.
Budget communication, like what you're doing now. But yes,
Thank you.
that was supposed to be a little cheeky comment, but yeah,
Thank you.
I absolutely understand. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. It's important. It's good.
So I just wanted to, again, at least from my perspective, thank the staff team for working with us as we've gone through this. I know
It's
it's,
been a long
you know,
evening.
y'all spend a lot of time in putting this all together, and we're sort of slicing and dicing in our way, but we appreciate the effort.
I second that. Thank you all very much for your.
May I ask a question? Chazo does come here from Charlotte region. Is it okay to not have him come on the 12th?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
As long as Faith can use the model.
I know how.
Hot dog. Chazo, you can take the night off,
I'm
man.
still muddling through with it, yes.
He's the expert, but I wanted to make sure we were clear on that, but thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Take it around. We're adjourned.